This episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by Scream Factory, but that'd be really cool. They do some very cool Blu-rays. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, and I was and am the titular teenage film snob. But did you know I was also a teenage Batman fan? I've been thinking about Batman a lot lately. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, the Batman was released, and by the time this comes out, it'll be about a month. So, of course, it's been making me think about Batman more and more, and I wanted to dedicate a whole episode to it. But we don't do reviews on this show, so as you know, we do lists. That's our thing. So I wanted to find an excuse to talk about Batman. So what I've done this week is called in an old friend, a big pal of the show. We've heard him before. He's our first returning guest. Someone who I like speaking about Batman films with maybe more than anyone. Please welcome back to the show, Nick Owen.
James, thanks for having me back on your podcast. Absolute pleasure to join you.
Glad to have you. The prodigal son returns. What's that, Michael?
My son returns.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The product, my son returns.
Well done for getting an Office reference into the first minute. The first bit of feedback. And I'm slightly disappointed there was no. If I was introducing you onto my podcast and we're going to talk about Batman, I'd say the Robin to my Batman, and then I'd read him with your name. So just a tip for next time, maybe.
For the next time I do an all Batman show.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got Office on the brain because I haven't rewatched it in a while. For those who don't know, Nick and I are massive Office fans. We even did a podcast about The Office once. Went for about 6 episodes because then we want to talk about other things. But it's been airing on free-to-air, and we don't watch a lot of free-to-air TV, but there's like a half an hour to 45-minute window between Zoe going down to sleep and actually falling asleep, where we just don't want to focus on anything, so we'll chuck on free-to-air and we'll watch Office reruns. And last night was the second last episode of the series. So, yeah, I've got Office on the mind. Even though Michael Scott isn't in that episode, I've got him on the brain.
Yeah, well, he's never far from my life, even if I'm not in the middle of some sort of Office rewatch, because generally once a week I'll get like a meme sent to me by you on Instagram from a page we both follow, which has generally got some pretty good Michael Scott memes. So I dare say a week doesn't go by when I'm not thinking about The Office.
I do love a good Office meme. I'm at that point now with my Office fandom, and we will talk about Batman, I promise, where I don't need to watch it again for a little while. Like if it's on free-to-air, I'll watch what's on TV, but I don't do a big rewatch for a while because I've seen that show probably close to 20 times through. Like I've watched it a lot, especially during lockdown, especially during Tina's pregnancy. So I'm in no rush, but if I see a good Office meme, I will pass it on and have a chuckle. I saw one today that I passed to Tina where it was, when what is it? They're trying to find the flasher, and the wanted posters are all of Dwight, and he's working with Andy, and he steals his candy bar where he's like, "Halsies? No, Halsies." So that was the template for the meme, "Halsies, no Halsies," and it was like when my girlfriend and I try to share the covers in bed. So I sent that one to Tina because it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I do know the moment. Very good.
It's pretty great. Cool. So we're going to chat about the Bat today, as I said. I've been using that phrase a lot, even off mic. It's not the first time Nick's heard that joke. It's probably about the fourth. I like the rhyme. And we had because we went and saw the Batman together a couple of weeks ago and had a lovely old time. A couple of goddamn kings in gold class.
It was. Can I just say, what a great thrill to be back in cinemas. I know they've been opening back up a little bit, but for me, this was the first like big event film I'd seen probably since Tenet, which is going back 18 months, I think now.
Wow, yeah,
at least. And it was just like I'd kind of forgotten that buzz of, you get to the cinema, the hype of waiting around, and then, absolute wonderful experience. But yeah.
It's my favorite thing. I love it. I was very lucky, even during lockdown and having a baby and stuff. I did manage to go to the cinemas 4 times last year, which by my regular standards is absolutely nothing. But for a year where everything was shut down, I was pretty happy with that. And 3 of those were Marvel films, so definitely getting those big action blockbusters, those event films in. And it was great. And it was nice to go. We used to go to the movies all the time together back when I lived out in Lilydale. Like, it'd feel like a couple of times a year we go catch a flick. So it was nice to be able to go do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Directly halfway between us, we found somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know if it was halfway close between us or halfway far away between us, but it did work out.
Yeah. It was a point between our houses.
But it was a good theatre to go to. It was great. Nice one. So we were talking about. So afterwards, we were talking about we need to talk about Batman on the podcast. So I was like, I'll definitely get you on to talk about it because who better? Who's gonna wax rhapsodic? More than you, I think so. So the only question was, how are we going to do it? Like, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to talk about Batman performances. We're going to rate our actors. And then we were like, well, it's a movie podcast. So we'll just talk about our favorite Batman movies. Now, we know this is controversial for the internet. There's no right answer. It doesn't matter what our lists are. We've been painstakingly working on our list for the last week. The first movie worth say someone's going to be like, wrong. That should not be number 10.
I think best to preface these lists by saying these are not our what we consider the top 10 or like the best 10 in order. It's more our preference for the 10 in order.
Yeah, absolutely. And, things are going to come into play. Like, obviously, nostalgia is going to play a big role. There's a movie in my honourable mentions. I won't give it away yet, but I'm sure when I say it, people are going to smash their phones and laptops and never want to listen again, including my father, who is listening every single week. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But nostalgia plays a big factor, obviously. I think you have to take into consideration how well they've aged as well. Like, some of those older films might not hold up so well, but we'll see how we go with that. Before we get started, though, I did want to talk to you about the character in general, because I've been a huge Batman fan most of my life. I was, definitely in the 90s was when I first kind of got into the character, and I'll leave out the movies that kind of got me into it because I'll talk about that on my list later. And then obviously, the Nolan trilogy came and went, and that was huge. And that was around the time I got into comics and stuff as well. What do you think it is about Batman that people love? Because everyone loves Batman. Like, you don't have to be a comic book fan to like it. You don't have to be a superhero fan to like Batman. But everyone, this film opened bigger than Spider-Man. This film is on track to be a better hit at the box office than Spider-Man. What is it about the character that people love?
Well, it's a great question. And I think that probably a lot of it has to do with, if you can have such a thing in the comic book world, is Batman's such a grounded character comparatively. Whether, not all of us can relate to having our parents, killed at gunpoint for pearls in an alley.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of us have probably felt as downtrodden and, as Bruce Wayne is. And I think the fact that, his origin, as much as I'm a massive Superman person, I do love my soups. But how much can one really relate to an alien from Krypton?
Yeah, exactly.
And the same for a lot of the Marvel heroes. And I think that, I think how grounded he is. I think I'd also say as well, for me personally, Batman's just been an ever present in the cinematic landscape, and so he's just been there as you grow up. And you and I didn't grow up in the comic book rich cinema landscape that there is now for youngsters.
Absolutely.
Coming up in the 90s, you really only had those Batman films, or certainly that's all I had access to. Like, one of the films I'm going to talk about later is purely higher on my list for nostalgic value because it was, the VHS I had when I was a kid. So yeah, I think that sort of in some part answers it. What are your thoughts on it?
I agree. There is that theory where it's like he's relatable as much as if I did enough push-ups and I had enough money, I could be Batman. Now, that's not what I like about Batman, but I think that's what some people do. I wonder whether I feel like he kind of represents, the darkness that we all have. And I'm not trying to get poetic and be like, oh, we're all dark, tortured souls. Not at all. But we've all had that moment where we're like, I just want to punch that guy in the face. If only I'd said this, if only I'd done that. And the whole idea of and they talk about a lot in that new movie, the personification of vengeance. What does vengeance look like as an image? It looks like Batman. And I'm certainly not promoting vengeance. Like, we don't want that. Like, that's not good. There's a difference in justice and vengeance. But I think that there's that where it's like, if there were no consequences, if I had the cojones to step up to whoever or whatever, I'd really like to, throw a batarang at his face or something like that. And I'm not saying there's a he in my mind. I'm just using him because Batman's not really punching a lot of women. He's normally punching guys. Let's be honest there. I think it's that. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off mid-sentence. No, I was going to say I think that's a really well-made point. I think that's something that, I definitely overlooked when entering that. And I think you're so right that there's a bit of, wouldn't we all just love to be that person who can go out and just start like taking down criminals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've all done it. Like, we've all fantasized about like, I could pull on some tights and, clean up my neighborhood. And like, from in the suburbs, my neighborhood was clean, but like, even still, like, you do think about it. I think also he's such a tragic character. Like, there's a real tragedy to that character, and Superman as well. Like, Superman didn't just lose his parents; he lost his whole planet. But with Batman, I think it's a little bit more grounded. We can relate to it. He just grew up in a city which, it's the worst city in America, but it's not that different from any other city in the world. Like, his parents were just lovely people, and then they went down, took a wrong turn, on the wrong night, and everything changed. And then he's just like, well, I never want this to happen again. So there's a really beautiful, almost Shakespearean tragedy to him as well. There's a lot to him, I think, that people like. Plus, like, he's got cool gadgets. He can solve, mysteries and crimes and stuff like that. There's a lot of. He's very cool as well. Like, there's also that.
Also, having a butler doesn't hurt his case.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the modern version of Alfred, who taught him how to fight and helps him with his gadgetry and stuff as well.
Yeah. No, but I think that's a really good point. I mean, if I could just quick question without notice for you, James. Where does Batman sit in your pantheon of comic book heroes?
Definitely up the top. When I first started reading comics and started getting into this world, it was kind of like Batman only. So Batman was definitely the first one. Everything else I thought was a bit silly. I didn't really like Marvel. I liked the movies enough, but like, I tried reading some comics, I just couldn't get into them. That has since changed. Thanks largely to Frank Miller, who wrote The Dark Knight Returns and Batman for a number of years. He did a great couple of miniseries, and Frank Miller also wrote Daredevil. So Batman and Daredevil are pretty much at level for me. They're probably my two favorites. They're both very similar, very grounded. Kind of mistaking justice with vengeance. There's a lot of parallels between Batman and Daredevil. So they're probably up the two. If I had like my Mount Rushmore, and I know we don't have Mount Rushmore in Australia, but if I had to do my Mount Rushmore of characters, those two are definitely up there. And then I put up Spider-Man and the Flash as well. So I've got two kind of very grounded, street level characters, and then two a bit more fantasy driven, kind of science fiction-y ones. All just red and black, obviously.
Yeah. You've definitely got a theme.
Yeah. What about yourself? Do you have a kind of a top tier of characters, or does Batman up there? Or?
My Mount Rushmore Batman would definitely be on it. I'd have to also put Iron Man in there.
Yep.
And I think I've never seen a Spider-Man movie I haven't really liked, which I think goes to this. I mean, number 3 is a bit iffy, but sorry, of the Tobey Maguire films. Yep. Sorry, I should specify there. So I think, Spider-Man would also be there as well. And are there 4 people on Mount Rushmore?
There are, yeah.
Okay, I'll find another one for you.
You don't have to.
I think Superman would be on there as well for me.
Yeah, we haven't really kind of talked about Superman that much. I didn't realize you're such a big Superman fan. I know you like Henry Cavill, but I'd never.
Yeah, I mean, I even have hold a bit of a candle for the Brandon Routh one, or Routh.
He's a great Superman.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was a bit far fetched. It was from that era, just before they sort of started to ground the superhero films in reality a little bit. So that weird floating island, or not the island that Lex Luthor was growing out, it was a bit far fetched, but I still think he was a great Superman.
Yeah, the problem with that film, is mainly it's very long and not a lot happens in it. It's about 2 hours. I think it's almost as long as Dark Knight Rises, and not much happens, and it's very slow. Superman doesn't really fight anyone in it, which makes it difficult. So it does have a few things working against it, but on the page, that film should work really well. Again, and Brandon Routh is very charming as Superman. It's meant to be kind of like a sequel to the Christopher Reeve one. So, I do hold a soft spot for that film, although I do see its flaws as well. But I was so glad that he got the chance to reprise that role a few years ago. They did on the DC TV shows, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and Brandon Routh came back as Superman, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah, that is really cool. I actually didn't realize that had happened. That's great.
Yeah, they brought back a lot of people in that crossover. They brought back Burt Ward as Robin from the 1960s. He was only like a cameo. He wasn't in much. I don't know if you remember Alexander Knox in the first Batman movie. He's like the reporter that works with Vicky Vale. He showed up in an episode. They really because they've been building their multiverse for the last kind of 5-10 years before Marvel. Marvel has just managed to get there first. Because, they've had a couple of multiverse films now. We've got another one coming up in a couple of months. So I think we should really crack into these lists and talk Batman.
Absolutely.
So just I messaged Nick urgently at the last night of this morning. I don't remember what it was now. I was like, quickly, I need to just double check you're happy with the rules for this. So what we're doing is we're doing our top 10 favorite Batman movies. And as I said, nostalgia will come into it, I'm sure. Any Batman movie doesn't have to have Batman in the title. He just has to be a character. No cameos. So obviously, I don't think anyone was picking the 2016 Suicide Squad, but if you were, doesn't really count. He's not really in it that much. It could be live action, animated, theatrical release, direct to DVD or streaming. We're including everything because that way gives us a lot more to play with as well.
I've stuck to those rules. I've got a couple of honorables, which I think we'll go through at the end of our lists.
Absolutely.
So if you're happy for me to get the ball rolling, I'll start with my 10th favorite Batman film.
Light up the bat signal, Robin. Let's go for it. What's number 10?
This is Boys Talking Bats. Number 10 for me is the recent Justice League, and I'm going to count both versions of that in the one, that both the theatrical release and Zack Snyder's 4-odd-hour extended cut, and I'll also count his black and white cut that's also available.
Justice is Grey.
Is that what that's called?
It is. Let me just piggyback by saying my number 10 is also Zack Snyder's Justice League.
All right. So we'll probably have a bit of crossover here, but look, probably a movie I wanted to like more than I did. I think that disappointment is a big factor of me ranking it so low here. I think for me, I was really on board Zack Snyder's DC universe. I thought it was a nice point of difference to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I thought this was the first nail in the coffin that universe lost its way. I think they tried to lighten it up, and the tone was everywhere in this movie. It wasn't overly coherent, and you can see why when you see what was cut out and how much was cut out in Zack Snyder's. And so I'll hand over to you in a sec so you can talk about it as well. But I think that even with the additional content put back in, it just it was a bit all over the place, and I think that's why it's so low for me. I don't think it's a particularly great Ben Affleck Batman performance. Anyway, I'll pause there so you can have a word in as well.
Yeah, no, sure. So I'm only doing Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm not doing the theatrical cut. I didn't have as many problems with the theatrical cut as other people did, but my least favorite part about that movie is Batman. Batman does a lot of non-Batman things in that theatrical cut, from talking to Alfred openly in front of a criminal, addressing him as Alfred, to smiling when Superman arrives, to making terrible jokes like something's definitely bleeding, I don't not like you. It was all very I don't want to say cringy. It just wasn't that character. That's not what that character's like. He was almost kind of like, he was almost like playing like Jimmy Olsen, where he's like, "Oh, Superman, what can I do to impress you?" Like, whereas in the extended cut, the Zack Snyder's Justice League, we get a lot more of who Batman's supposed to be. We get to see him become a leader. Different members have led the Justice League in the comics in the past, and Batman's definitely one of them. I always like when Batman leads the Justice League because it's like a man leading God. So I think that's very interesting. So I do like him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but even still, he's definitely a lesser player. It's definitely more of a vehicle to explore Aquaman and Flash and Cyborg in particular, and kind of showcase those characters before their own films. But you got some really wonderful scenes. You've got Batman working with Gordon. You got Bruce kind of talking to Barry Allen and like trying to figure out what his superpowers and stuff are. You do have like some relationship building with him and Wonder Woman, which I always liked in the comics when they kind of gave them a romance. I'm not saying that's what they're doing in this film, but it kind of felt like there was some light flirtation, which I really liked. On top of that, that scene at the end, in Russia when he's fighting off parademons, and like, if at any time he's fighting parademons is great. Like even in the old silo where everyone's being held captive, like him trying to like take on this army and just being this old battered Batman fighting aliens for the first time. So there is a lot to enjoy, and definitely, Affleck makes it worth his performance worth watching. But as a Batman film and a Batman kind of focus, it's lower on the list for a reason.
Yeah, I couldn't have. That was very good summation. Couldn't have said it better myself.
You're just sucking up to the host now.
Well, suck on this. This is my number 9.
Go for it.
Are we ready to move on?
I can move on unless you got any final words on Zack Snyder's. I'll just say this: I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, and it's a real achievement. Like, I see why they couldn't release it in cinemas. It is very long, and if you did, just run everything at normal speed, it probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as long. But that's what Zack Snyder does. You look at Watchmen, you look at 300, look at pretty much anything he's done, with the exception of Dawn of the Dead. Like, he paints splash pages on a screen. He does very big, epic, almost godlike storytelling. Like, it's a very distinct style. I know a lot of people have problems with his filmmaking. I don't, because no one else is making movies like him. And the Justice League, it's not like the Avengers. And I'm not pitting one against the other. I love all the Avengers films as well. But that is, family entertainment. And, sometimes there's a little more going on. There's later Avengers films are quite dark, but they're, it is family entertainment. They're popcorn movies, just have a bit of a message. Zack Snyder's doing a very different kind of film, and making it very epic, and making it like, like those old like Ben-Hur pictures and stuff. Like, let's really use the screen. Let's use everything we can, which is what I love about that film. So there's a lot to like about the movie, unlike the original, which felt like it was 3 people on a soundstage all movie. Like, it felt very small.
Yeah.
So I think,
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and like the tone of that theatrical cut, the original one, you can, it's almost like some scenes were shot in black and white and they expected you not to notice. That was the difference in tone.
Yeah.
In that, like the lines that were obviously added post-production, and it was messy. And but I think you're right. Like, the performances are still pretty good in there. And I think that a lot of the fact I've ranked it so low, a lot of the reason I've ranked it so low on mine is probably how, in retrospect, my disappointment that this really tanked where that cinematic universe was going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now it feels a little rudderless to me, because I think that the Wonder Woman 1984, the sequel, was okay. It wasn't great. And it seems sort of like without a strong Justice League kind of franchise pulling all those characters forward, they feel a bit just cast adrift.
Yeah, I agree. And I've liked most of the DC stuff since. I really liked Aquaman. The first time, it was a bit much, but like on rewatching, I really enjoyed it. Birds of Prey is probably one of the weaker ones for me, but it's not a terrible film. It just wasn't my cup of tea. The Suicide Squad I loved. I really enjoyed that. And 2022 and 2023 are looking like good years for DC. The Flash movie looks great. We're going to get a lot of Batman in that because Ben Affleck's showing up in that one again. And there are rumors that the rest of the Justice League might be making appearances as well. So, that looks great. I'm always down for the next Aquaman film. So there's definitely a bright future for DC, whether it's a Zack Snyder-driven universe or not.
Oh, excellent. All right, well, I'll move on to my 9th
Go for it.
Batman film, which is, I was going to lead in with the year, but I can't quite think of it, but Batman Forever, starring Val Kilmer as the titular Batman.
1995, Batman Forever.
95, thank you. So I mentioned in our preamble that I that I had one of the Batman films on VHS. This was the one. And so, do you know how now we're our age and you have access to all these streaming services? I would never dream of watching Batman films or any films out of order. But when you're a kid, you just watch what you have access to, and that was Batman Forever. So for me, this was Batman. I thought that Tommy Lee Jones as Harvey Two-Face was the scariest mofo in this,
definitely
that I'd seen. So sinister. And I mean, I can't deny now the campiness of Jim Carrey's Riddler villain. It's insane.
Yeah.
And the plot, the plot's a bit far-fetched as well in stealing people's brainwaves and things like that. But I love the Schumacher depiction of Gotham. I think he absolutely nails that.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I'm not sure if this appears on your list. Obviously, you don't have to say. But do you have any thoughts on Batman Forever?
Yeah, this is one of the ones I saw later in life. So I wasn't a kid. I was probably like in my teens when I saw Batman Forever for the first time. I'll talk about my first Batman movie a little bit later on. So it took a little while for me to get to it, and I wasn't the world's biggest Jim Carrey fan. I'm still not. I don't dislike him. I think when he's great, he's great. But I think his brand of comedy doesn't always suit what I'm into. Again, like not a criticism, but I love him in so much stuff. Just I know I never grew up watching a lot of his comedies. So when I did finally see it, I did think he was a little bit odd, but now I know he is kind of an homage to the 1960s Batman. I think Val Kilmer's great. I think he's a really good choice for Bruce Wayne and Batman. Again, there's some weird stuff. There's a lot of Batman smiling in this movie. There's a weird thing where Batman, like obviously there's the whole Chase Meridian storyline, who's now in the comics. I don't know if she always was, but she is in the comics now. And like he doesn't like that she has a crush on Batman. He wants her to have a crush on Bruce Wayne. Like that was very unusual. Is this also the one where Robin does karate to fold his laundry, or is that Batman and Robin?
Yeah. So I was going to mention that's this one. I don't think I've ever cringed harder in my adult life than watching that, because it's not played for any type of like they're not supposed to be in on it. It's played so earnestly that he's like trying to prove his worth to Batman, and he just does some rock and roll laundry.
It's like Bruce Wayne just catches him folding laundry. He's like, oh, maybe he could be a crime fighter.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. Chris O'Donnell, I don't know, he's all right as Robin. I can't say that I absolutely love him in this film.
I don't dislike him, but my problem is, why is Bruce Wayne adopting like a 23-year-old man? Like
I think he sees another troubled soul.
But it's like he could just rent a house. Like to me, it's like that's where it falls apart a little bit for me. And again, it's not a bad film. It's very fun. It's very campy. It's definitely rewatchable. But like that's where the biggest hurdle for me. Where I'm like, you could have been like, you didn't, like, in the comics Robin's like 10. Like you didn't have to do 10 if you didn't want to. Like if it was the 90s, if it was weird to put a 10-year-old as Robin, but you could have done like a 16-year-old, and then you could, like, the rebellion would have felt a bit more real. Like I would have bought into the angst a bit more, because like he's a teenager, they talked about this rich guy he doesn't know. Like you could have played with that a lot more. Whereas 42-year-old Chris O'Donnell, like it just doesn't quite work for me. That being said, I will say I love Michael Gough as Alfred. I think he's a really good Alfred. I will actually go and say there has not been a miscast for Alfred ever. They always get the casting right, I think.
I do agree with you there.
And Tommy Lee Jones, kind of starts off very, very good as Two-Face, and then kind of becomes the Joker a little bit, which is jumping around and like laughing and stuff. But I do like it.
I feel like that's the plight of all Batman villains, though. Is like they can all slip a little bit too into the Joker.
Yeah, definitely. But it's got some great moments. I love, and I talked about Jim Carrey not being the world's biggest Jim Carrey fan. One thing I do love is his final scene when he's in Arkham Asylum and he's talking about how he knows the identity of the Batman, and he's just like, "I'm Batman," and he's like, "Wait," like to me, like that is legitimately funny. Like, and it's a great little plot twist. I love that. My question for you is: did Batman Forever make you a Bat fan forever?
Well, yes, it surely did.
Well, I've been waiting so long to just slip that joke in. It's so dumb.
And I think you touched on Val Kilmer. I agreed. I think he's a great Batman. I think I think people are either better Bruce Waynes or they're better Batmans. I actually think he's a better Bruce Wayne.
I agree.
Than he is a Batman. There's a scene when he's doing a tour of the Wayne Enterprises sort of factory floor, I guess you'd call it, the labs or whatever they are, and you can see what a cool and commanding presence he is. He's really fair to Edward Nygma.
Mm-hmm.
When he's trying to sell him on his pitch, and I would have loved to have seen more of him as Batman, to be honest.
I agree.
And I think that Nicole Kidman, I mean, she was probably in one of the purple patches of her career at that point. Unfortunately, she's given a classic female part, which is underwritten and underdeveloped in those sort of 90s films. So she doesn't have a whole lot to do, except sort of stand there and make eyes at Batman. But yeah, she's fine. She's doing well in there as well. So I think a lot of people might be surprised that's in a top 10 of Batman films, but for me, I would say that the nostalgia value of it as well is I look back with rose tinted glasses.
No, definitely, it's definitely fun. And like, if I was going to choose, at some point, I'm going to start showing my daughter these movies. Like, she's a bit young at the moment, but at some point, I will. Like, Batman first, probably the first one. Like, in terms of the live action films, like, it's probably the most fun one and most engaging one. That would probably be the first one, honestly. So there's definitely a lot of value in that film. And I'll just put it out here: I don't hate any Batman movies. Like, I'm a real Batman fan, and I don't mean real fans like all movies. I mean, I really am a Batman fan. So, like, even if it's not good, by kind of critical standards, I'll still find something I like about it. Nice one. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about Batman Forever?
No, I'll leave it there.
Nice one. Well, my number 9 is an animated film. Came out a few years back, actually probably almost 10 years back now. And it's called Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. So it's based on a comic book called Flashpoint, in which Barry Allen, the Flash, after having a couple of miserable bouts, he decides he's going to run fast enough to go back in time and prevent his mother from being murdered. Common theme with these superheroes: parents getting murdered left and right. And in doing so, he accidentally rewrites the timeline. So when he comes out the other side, his mum's alive, but he no longer has powers. Superman never landed in Kansas. He landed in America and was captured by the government and has never seen the sunlight, so he's all weak and thin and malnourished. Aquaman and Wonder Woman got married, and the Amazons and Atlanteans united, but then someone cut off Mira's head, and then they divorced and they went to war with each other. And when we land in the movie, the Atlanteans and Amazons are fighting over Europe. Like, it's really intense. There's no Justice League. The only person from the Justice League who was around is Cyborg. And Bruce Wayne was murdered in Crime Alley. So the big difference of this universe is when the Waynes left the theater that night,
it's 9 o'clock.
A crazed gunman comes out, and instead of shooting the Wayne parents, he shoots Bruce. And from that moment on, Thomas Wayne becomes the Batman. And he's a violent Batman. He uses guns. He's got the bat symbol with like a big red sun behind. He's got red eyes. And Martha goes insane and becomes the Joker.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's this version. That's this version of our universe. This is what happens all because Barry Allen, screwed up the timeline. So this is more of a Thomas Wayne Batman story. He plays quite a bit of a role in it. He's there to he's the conduit for Barry. Like, Barry's trying to find Justice League members to work with, and there's no one available. And he goes to Wayne Manor, and he finds it's been abandoned. There's no Alfred, and he gets attacked by Batman. He's like, Bruce, like, to my friend, it's me, Barry. And, obviously it's Thomas Wayne, not Bruce Wayne. It's like, Bruce died years ago. Like, who are you? And then they kind of, after, the stereotypical superhero fight, realize that they are on the same time, and Thomas helps him get his powers back. And the heroes that are in the world hate Batman because he's so violent and unnecessarily brutal and stuff like that. So we get two Batman in this movie, and that's why it's on there. First of all, we get Thomas Wayne, played by Kevin McKidd. And then we do also get Bruce Wayne at the tail end of the film in kind of like the PS scene. And it's Kevin Conroy, of course, who I think is largely accepted as one of the best Batman performances.
Yeah, and he would be the longest running performer to play Batman, would he not?
He's still doing it. So he started in 1992 when the Batman animated series started, and now it's 2022. I don't know if he's done anything this year, but he's been doing it for about 30 years. And he recently came out, like, literally in the last couple of days saying, I want to do another Arkham game, which I'm all for. So it's a really wonderful film. I won't go into too much information because I've given you a lot of plot points already. If people haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a check out. It's probably about an hour and 15 minutes long. Those earlier DC animated films were quite short. Now they go up to an hour and a half or longer, but when they first came out, they were kind of around an hour 10. So it's really good. But one of the best scenes in the film is right before Barry comes back to our timeline. There's a conversation with Thomas Wayne, and Thomas gives him a letter. And then Barry comes back to our timeline. He's talking to Bruce. He's like, oh, by the way, like I met someone in the other timeline, and it's a letter from Bruce's father to his son, because they lost each other in their own timelines, and this is kind of a bridge between them. And it's like one of the few times you ever see Batman cry, and it's a really like beautiful like moment where you're like, oh, like this isn't. Why did they do this sooner? Why did it take until like 2011 for someone to be like, hey, maybe like through the timeline, Bruce gets to talk to his dad again? So it's a really like wonderful moment. It's really, for me, it's really satisfying. I don't know if we're going to get anything like that in this Flash movie coming up, but they are kind of playing with Flashpoint from as well. But yeah, it's a great flick. It's a very easy watch. There's a lot of fun little references and Easter eggs in there, and you get two Batman in it. The one we know and love, and one who's a little bit darker, which is very, very cool.
Yeah. I would love to see a Thomas Wayne Batman. Actually, that sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And sorry, last question on that: does it sort of explore the concept of Martha being the Joker, or is it just sort of mentioned?
They play with it a little bit, but it's not the main feature of the movie. It's more like it's not a Batman movie. It's definitely a Flash movie under the title of Justice League. But Thomas Wayne is in it quite a bit, so you get a little bit of Joker. Even in the comics, they didn't dive into it too deeply. It was more just kind of like, hey, here's here's an alternate universe for you. They're bringing him back. Actually, there's a new comic series coming out this year. I think it's called Flashpoint Beyond or something. I can't remember the title. And there's a whole mini series about Thomas Wayne Batman. So I imagine we might see some Martha Joker in there, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see that fleshed out in a series or something like that.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, obviously with this Flash film, we've got, spoilers if anyone doesn't know, Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck confirmed to be coming out back. We don't know if there are any other Batman. We might get a Christian Bale, who knows? But to me, it's like, oh, it'd be really interesting if maybe Affleck's playing Thomas Wayne in this. Like, we don't know who he's playing. Like, it hasn't been confirmed it's going to be Bruce. Like, maybe he's playing Thomas Wayne. Because it sounds like, by all accounts, Michael Keaton is going to be this universe's Batman moving forward. Like, he's in the Batgirl movie as well, playing her mentor. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, Thomas Wayne is a very cool Batman, and I am always excited to see more of him.
Are you sure Michael Keaton's not playing the founder of McDonald's in this one?
That is a great movie. It's got nothing to do with Batman, but it's very, very. He's great in everything. Like, I'll watch that guy do any movie.
He's so likable. All right, shall I press on?
Yeah, go for it.
What are we up to? 8?
Number 8.
All right. Oh no, we're up to 7.
No, that was my number 9. So we're up to number 8.
Oh, okay. Batman Returns, the second of the Keaton Batmans. Now, I won't press you in case this appears on your list. Again,
we can talk about this. It's okay. I'll talk about it.
Heavy nostalgia value here. and I don't want to reference it too much in relation to the preceding original Batman film. But great performances across the board here. I really think everyone is just like nailing it. Like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is incredible.
Yep.
Daniel DeVito as the Penguin. It actually took me rewatching it recently to see how much. And I know it's going to sound funny for a big Batman villain, but how much emotion he puts into that backstory of the Penguin, obviously being abandoned as a child, and you really do feel for him in that. Part of me is like, yeah, I can kind of see what you're getting at here.
Mm.
Obviously, the second of the Tim Burton Batman films, his style is stamped all over it. And again, I really love the Gotham in those films. I think it's a really fantastic setting. I'll hand over to you.
I do like Batman Returns. It's probably one of my favorite of the original four, like so in that original kind of Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher kind of connected universe. It's definitely the darkest one. There are some weird things in it. Like I do like the visual style of Gotham, but it also, like, Gotham seems like it takes place in about 2 city blocks. It's not a very big Gotham. I do like Danny DeVito's commitment to the role, but he's really weird. Like, I don't really like Tim Burton kind of started this trend of fetishizing the villains. Like, if you look at all the Batman films, like the ones that are at the top of my list are up there because they're Batman movies. Like, most of them are really, hey, Batman's in this, but check out this cool villain, or check out these cool 10 villains. And that's kind of what I felt with Batman Returns. I think he's overtly sexual for no good reason. Like, he's always trying to like pinch girls' butts and stuff, and he's got that slime coming out of his mouth. All that being said,
borderline sex pest.
Yes. That being said, I think character design is great, and I think like he's a very interesting character. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is excellent. I really, really like her. I really like the relationship between her and Batman and Selena and Bruce, and they nail it. I think it's only exceeded by one performance, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But especially like they're on the rooftop, and like you don't know whether they're about to like fall in love or kill each other. Like, it's a really good tight wire act. I do not like the way Batman treats Commissioner Gordon in this movie. Like, there's literally a moment very early on where it's like, thanks for saving the city, Batman. The Red Triangle gang are at it again. And Batman's like, whatever. Like, just blows him up completely. And again, like, the main villain of the film is like a businessman, like Max Schreck. Like, so look, I'm certainly not criticizing. I think it's a really, really fun watch, and it's very dark, which I do like. There's some weird kind of Hellraiser psychosexual fetishism in there, which seems a little bit out of place for a Batman film, but at the same time, it's very entertaining. But there's just some weird stuff in there, like weird stuff that I don't know where it came from.
It's Batman in all its campy glory. It's, like we're now in the era of grounded realism, real gritty films, which I personally love. But I think there is a place to, like, it's really nice to go back and just see certainly where you can really trace the origins of where we are now back to these early Tim Burton films. And I think there's something really sweet about that. Keaton's actually, I wouldn't put him up there as one of my favorite of the Batmen.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's fairly wooden performance, and he's still obviously, I give him massive props for being a pioneer, bringing it to the masses. Like, I mean, obviously not being around to take in the cultural landscape back in the early 90s, I wouldn't have been aware of that. But, from reading about it recently, like, it was an absolute phenomenon,
Yeah.
And so I got to give him mad props for that. But, yeah, I think that, with those early Burton films, and obviously I'm sure we'll talk about the original one later, they are very villain focused.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of Bruce Wayne, and even his Batman is quite silent, doesn't say a lot, and the fighting's a bit stilted and cut together as well.
I'm in agreement with you. Like, I do like the gritty stuff. I like the really realistic stuff, but I do like the more fantastical as well. Like, so I don't really care what kind of what kind of Batman you give me. I would argue the Zack Snyder stuff isn't really grounded. Like it is gritty, but it's not. There's definitely, especially Justice League, there's a lot of fantasy elements in that. And these as well, like they don't feel grounded. They do feel a bit fun and silly. Batman Returns also has the world's slowest car chase, where the Batmobile is trying to chase down the Penguin, and he's going about like 30 kilometers an hour, but he needs like a grappling hook to turn around a tight corner.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing. Like I'm making fun of it, but it all comes from a place of admiration. I do like that film quite a bit, but it's just again very clear that the people at the helm didn't really understand the character. Like Tim Burton was like, the Penguin should be an actual penguin, and that seems a real misread of the character.
Yeah, let's give him a penguin nose
and flipper hands.
Yeah, that's right. And also, like, I don't know, we weren't as culturally sensitive to what this would look like, but his parents literally just like throw his pram off a bridge into a stream at the start. That is cold. That is ice cold. Like, where is the oversight from like the government there? Like, didn't you have a son?
Yeah, it's very Moses-like, throwing a basket into a river. And his dad, by the way, I don't know if you picked up on this, but Penguin's father is played by Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens.
Oh no, I didn't. I did not. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, nice one.
So, well, that's my 8. So I'll pass over to you.
My number 8 is another animated film. Actually, I've got a couple of animated films on the list. This one came out 2017, I want to say, maybe 2018. I can't remember exactly. It's another Justice League film. It's called Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. So this was the final chapter in the kind of 10 to 12 year animated film series. They did a bunch of them, and they were all kind of interwoven and tied in, starting with Flashpoint. That was the first one, I think, that kind of launched it. And Apocalypse War is the last chapter. And what happens in this one, and Batman's not a huge player in this one, but it's such a fun movie, and Batman's role is very interesting that I do like it. So this kind of feels like what the next Justice League movie was supposed to be by Zack Snyder. What happens is the film opens, Darkseid is launching an attack, the Justice League get to Apocalypse first to stop him, and it's a bait and switch. Like, they don't realize that Darkseid's planned for it, and the Justice League get like wiped out. Everyone gets either killed or enslaved. And one of the only people who survives is John Constantine. Who, if you don't know, he's a British character, but he was played by Keanu Reeves. He's a bit of an occult detective type character, and a bit of a magician. So that's in the first like 5 minutes of the movie, and then we flash forward like 5 years, and like Earth is under Darkseid's control. People are either dead or dying or hiding, just trying to escape these like waves of parademons coming down. And John Constantine is just constantly trying to get drunk in a bar. He's then visited by Raven from the Teen Titans and Superman. Superman is beard and no longer super, because what happened was Darkseid held Superman prisoner and gave him a kryptonite tattoo on his chest, which prevents him from using his powers. So that's the universe we're living in. And it's kind of like a last battle cry film where they're like, if we can just get enough forces together, we might be able to stop Darkseid. And they ultimately eventually arrive at Apocalypse to fight him. And it's revealed that the rest of the Justice League have been enslaved. So Diana, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and a couple other people have been turned into like these weird cyborg characters where they've been fused with Apocalypse. What's the word I'm trying to find? Like machinery, and they've been enslaved. And then we find out that Batman is now Darkseid's right-hand man. He's been mind-watched, and he's kind of like helping control everything, and they have to break Bruce free so that they can stop Darkseid. So Batman has a relatively small role in this, but I love the performance so much. I love the idea of Batman being brainwashed and being like an evil henchman, plus everything else going on in this movie. Like, it's just so epic. I think this is one of those kind of first 90-minute animated films they did direct to DVD, but it's just so fun and wild, and it does really seem like this is kind of a little bit where Zack Snyder was heading, you know, based on the information we've heard on those leaked storyboards and stuff, that it was meant to end in part 2 of Justice League was meant to, you know, Earth enslaved by Apocalypse and Darkseid, and then part 3 was them coming back to try and save the world. And it's got so many characters. It's got like 100 characters in it. It's really, really fun, really dark and epic, and is a wonderful final chapter for that animated universe. And yeah, you get Batman kind of being a bad guy for a little bit, so I like it a lot. And Batman
that
was
sounds really good.
yeah, it is. And it was voiced. Batman was voiced by Jason O'Mara, so not a huge name that a lot of people would know, but he's voiced Batman more often than not over the last 10 years. So when Kevin Conroy is doing it, or like a celebrity isn't doing it, he's kind of been the main animated voice for Batman in those movies. So and gives a really good performance.
Yeah, awesome. No, that sounds awesome. And I think that like my my lack of exposure to a lot of those animated films is showing here, because again I haven't seen that one, but I love like I think it sounds exactly like, as you were saying, like where the Snyder films looked like they were going, and it just like makes me sad again to see that vision couldn't come true or couldn't come to fruition.
But I'll tell you what, like in absence of a Snyder film, this is pretty good. Like, we don't get that grand epic scope. We're not getting that 4-hour, visual feast. We're not getting Ben Affleck, but we're getting a lot of cool DC characters with very little setup required, and still a very cool looking story. And it's dark. Like I think it's rated MA, which is very rare for those animated films. But they made it brutal. As I said, like one of my favorite things in that movie is the Darkseid literally kidnapped Superman, gave him a kryptonite tattoo so he couldn't use his powers anymore. And like it's a real insult to injury because it's the Superman shield on his chest. So like I love that. Like he's so cruel. He's literally mocking him with his own symbol. It's good fun. Let's hear number 7.
Here's the first animated entry on my list.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film I watched upon your recommendation a few years ago, and since then I've watched it. It's been a semi-regular rewatch. Batman: The Killing Joke.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah, and so again, I won't push you for a contribution in case it appears a bit higher on your list. But man, is this film dark? I love that, you could also classify the first third as also a Batgirl film as well.
A lot of people had problems with that part of the movie.
Babs Gordon. Well, I mean, you can probably elaborate on that, but I don't know if that's from some, knowledge of the comic books and whether it's accurate or something like that. And you could probably provide a bit more context for the setting of that, because again, I don't have a lot of knowledge of the comics, but is one of my all-time favorite Batman and Joker interactions, and obviously the classic pairing of Conroy and Hamill back for his portrayal of the Joker.
Definitely.
And it gives me massive Mask of the Phantasm vibes as well, set in like, you've got the back half that's set in that abandoned like entertainment park. I don't know. I don't know if I've got too much more to say about this.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on The Killing Joke?
I like it a lot. So a lot of people had problems with this movie, and the reason being is the book is so revered. Now, first of all, I like the book. I think the book has been put on a pedestal, because the first time I read it, I was like, okay, and I'm not criticizing. Like, it's written by Alan Moore, who gave us The Watchmen, From Hell, V for Vendetta, Swamp Thing. Like, Alan Moore's a hell of a writer, and it's a great Batman story. But it's one of those books that, because it's been so revered for so long, did the thing that you didn't necessarily know you wanted or needed, and that's an origin for the Joker. Now, I still like my Joker without an origin story. But that being said, if you're going to give him one, this is a pretty good one. There's no Batgirl stuff in the book except for what happens to her when the Joker kills her. Oh, not kills her, when he shoots her in the spine. Which was horrifying to read, and horrifying to see as well. So a lot of people had problems with that movie because Batman sleeps with Batgirl. And in the comics, he's always been more of a fatherly figure to her. He's not as old as Jim Gordon, obviously, but at the same time, there is definitely a bit of a age gap. And when they start working together, she's not so much a child, but she's definitely a teenager when they first start working together. So a lot of people had a problem with that. Plus, she's meant to be partnered up with Dick Grayson or any other kind of characters. So I think a lot of people didn't like that. Me, I didn't care. I was like, you know what? Like, we've never seen a Batman movie where he, gets down with someone in a costume before.
Yeah.
And
And
I did kind of like the idea how it was like, you know, he was her mentor, and she kind of bought into it. And she's like, "Oh, I love him." You know, I didn't mind it as much, and also it does give you a bit more of an emotional payoff at the end of the movie when she does get shot, because now he feels more responsible. Like he's kind of been trying to stop her from getting involved, and like he's friends with Jim Gordon. Now his daughter's been hurt on Bruce's watch and stuff like that. So I did like that. And also without it, you don't have a movie. Like it doesn't run long enough to be a movie because it's quite a short story.
And well, I mean, I love the juxtaposition of you've got the Batman in this iteration who wants to kind of settle things with the Joker. I mean, if you can recall, he actually goes to Arkham to talk things out with the Joker and basically say, like, look, if we keep going this way, one of us is going to have to kill the other one. You know, can we talk this out? And so you've got his want to just sort of settle this dispute with words, and then you've got a real evil version of the Joker in this. I mean, Joker can be portrayed as being a bit more, in some of the more recent film portrayals is a bit of a badass, obviously, but some of the animated series is a bit more of a Joker, no pun intended. But he paralyzes Babs, and then they sort of kidnap the Commissioner Gordon and just torture him, like mentally. He disintegrates, and it is fucking dark, that film.
It really is. And there's a great thing in the book which isn't painted so obviously in the movie. From what I remember, it's been a little while since I've seen it. But in the book, although it's not explicitly said, the last scene or the last panels are Joker tells a joke and he laughs, and then Batman laughs. And it's a really creepy ending because you're not used to Batman laughing. In the comics, the way the panels work is Joker starts laughing, then Batman starts laughing, then they both start laughing, and then only Batman's laughing. And what that implies to me, and I'm not saying this is right, but I'm not saying, I'm sure a lot of people hear this and be like, you're wrong. If Batman's the only one laughing, he killed the Joker. Like, that's what's happened. He's broken his neck. Like, that's what it kind of feels like to me in the comics. So, and it's in the title, the killing joke. Like, so the idea that Batman finally has snapped, he's like, that's it, I'm ending this. Even if it's not true, I like that version. I think I first heard that theory from Grant Morrison, who's a very famous Batman writer. And I like that idea a lot. I'm like, what if he did go over the edge? What if he did push himself, just a little bit too far?
Yeah. And it is an ambiguous ending like that.
It's a great animated flick. It's definitely underrated. I think a lot of people, because they had such high expectations, they were disappointed by it, but there's no reason to be. It's really good.
All righty. Well, that's me.
Nice one. Number 7 for me is another animated film. This one is called Justice League Doom. You can see they're all Justice League films because I like the way Batman works in with those teams and how he interacts with other characters. Justice League Doom is based on a comic book written by Mark Waid called The Tower of Babel. And basically what the Justice League discovers is that Batman, in secret, has been hoarding preventative measures from stopping other members of the Justice League. They learn that he's, he doesn't trust anyone in his Batcave. He's got kryptonite. He's got ways to power down Martian Manhunter and Cyborg and everyone. I think Cyborg, I can't remember if he's in the film or not. It's been a little while. But basically he's come up with the nuclear deterrent. If the Justice League turn, I can stop them. And then what happens is someone finds and starts taking out members of the Justice League. It turns out I think the Legion of Doom, if I remember, have found Batman's stash of how to stop the Justice League, and they start taking them all out, and they want to kind of replace him as the heroes. And then the Justice League have to crawl their way back and try and punch evil in its face and stop it. I love that concept. I love the fact that his Batman's own ambition and desire to do the right thing has driven a wedge between him and the Justice League. Because again, I've said a few times now, he's a man amongst gods. Like, he needs to have preventative measures. And he even says at one point in the movies, like, do you guys have preventative measures for me? And they're like, no. And he goes, well, you should. Like, what happens if I'm compromised? It's a great Batman line. And look, I don't have too much to say on this one. It has been a little while since I watched it. Kevin Conroy is also Batman in this as well. And I'm pretty sure Nathan Fillion is Green Lantern, if I remember. But it's great. It's just, again, it's a really fun idea. We always like seeing heroes kind of fight each other, but just the idea that like Batman he's prepared for everything except for the possibility of someone stealing his preventative measures. And then kind of chaos ensues.
No, that sounds like actually a really cool premise, and I guess that rings true for a few different iterations of Batman's, because it doesn't Ben Affleck's Batman have a line where he's talking to Alfred and he says, if there's even a 5% chance that Superman's here to take over the world, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 1%, but yeah, you're absolutely
right. There you go.
He's not very trusting.
He's a man who plays the percentages, that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that theme rings true across a few different iterations of Batman. But no, that sounds really cool. All of yours sound very cool, mate. I'll have to get on these animated films.
I know this is not a visual medium, but I will show you what I've got, because I bought this a few years back. And pardon me as I step away from the mic. They actually released an animated box set. So,
cool.
Yeah, so it's the DC Universe Anniversary Collection, and it's got, I don't even know how many movies are in it, but most of the ones I'm referencing are in this, including like Killing Joke and stuff like that as well. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you're definitely welcome to peruse.
Yeah, I usually just have to get mine off the old iTunes download.
Excellent. Take me to number 6. We're only halfway. We're not even halfway through our list yet.
That's right. We like to be thorough.
That's it.
You can always tell if I haven't seen one in a while because my comments are like not very specific. Number 6 for me is my first Christopher Nolan entry.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to shock you that they're not the top 3, and that would be The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
So the third and concluding movie of his trilogy. What can I say about The Dark Knight Rises? I left the cinema thinking I just witnessed utter perfection. And I think that as I've, lived with it for probably it's scary how long it's been out. It's probably been almost 10 years now.
10 years this year, yeah.
It is a bit messy. It's definitely not as refined a vision as the previous 2 films in his. I know some people, Bane is really divisive as a villain. I know some people love what Tom Hardy was doing. For me, like, I couldn't get past the voice. I was just thinking, why couldn't you have just made it like 10% clearer? But having said that, there are some absolutely like great moments in this. Like I actually love all the weird Middle Eastern prison scenes that he's in. I don't know how realistic it is when he has his back broken and then he just recovers by doing push-ups. But I love the leap of faith element to it. And it's only when he takes the rope off that he can make the jump. That's all fantastic. I think. I'd love to get your opinion actually on this version of Catwoman. I don't know. Do you think Anne Hathaway? To me, I think her character could have been developed a little bit further. I don't think she leaves as much of a mark as Catwoman should on this film.
I agree. I remember being so excited when they announced Anne Hathaway, because after Dark Knight, I was saying to them, like, next film they should do Catwoman, and I think they should choose Anne Hathaway. I think she'd be a great choice. So it was one of the first times I dabbled with casting predictions, and I was so happy I'd got it right. I think Anne Hathaway's great in this film. One of my favorite moments is when they're in the bar and like she kidnapped the politician or whatever, and then the police storm in it, and she goes and does that whole pretend scream and cry, and then turns up. Like, that to me is perfection. Like, what a great performance. Her performance is like also when Bruce Wayne stumbles upon her the first time, and she's like she's caught, and then she's like, oops, I didn't know it was supposed to be unbreakable. Like, she's got some really great lines, some really great deliveries. She's not Catwoman to me in this movie, not really. Like, they focus a lot on the Selena Kyle of it all, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about other Selena Kyles at some point in this conversation. There's a lot of kind of year one vibes for her Catwoman, which is kind of like before she becomes Catwoman. But she never seems to earn Bruce's trust, but he continues to trust her throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on it. Like, although I do like, there's also that scene in the tunnels when Batman goes to fight Bane for the first time, and we'll talk about that because what a great scene. But where she and Batman are taking out henchmen as they're trying to get to Bane, it's in the dark, and very reminiscent of a scene that's in the new Batman movie as well, like just guns firing and kind of creating a bit of a light show. But yeah, so I do like her performance. I think she does some really interesting and fun stuff. But as a Catwoman, she probably misses the mark a little bit for me. And it's not her, just the way the story was written. It wasn't really, they wanted to throw an extra villain from the sounds of it, but they didn't really care how kind of Catwoman accurate she was. So.
Yeah. I think, again, maybe you'll need to weigh in terms of the whether this is canon or not, but like Ra's al Ghul and crowbarring in Talia al Ghul into the story, are they affiliated with Bane? Was he, all that stuff about the child in the prison being Talia al Ghul? I don't know if that's story accurate, but it just felt all a bit messy. I don't know.
Yeah, so I like Bane. I actually really like Tom Hardy's Bane in this. I do like the voice. Especially because for the next 6 months after seeing it, all I did was try to do that voice and annoy my wife. So I did I did like doing that. In the comics, Bane was born in prison. That is accurate. And he was serving a sentence like his mother committed or something. It was like some weird comic book line where his mother died in prison, so the baby had to serve the sentence. But and then
we should have that now.
He gets hooked on this drug called Venom. Which turns him into he pushes his chest and it goes into his veins and becomes that monster, which I think they referenced in this new Batman film. There is a moment, spoilers, where Batman has to put a green liquid into his body as a bit of an adrenaline pump, and I think it was meant to be Venom. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, their origins weren't so tied in. Talia is absolutely a character. Ra's al Ghul is the head of the League of Assassins or the League of Shadows, whatever you want to call them. And he is more of a mystical character. He's been around for centuries. Every time he dies, he gets thrown into something called the Lazarus Pit. It's got these rejuvenating waters that bring him back to life. But they take a piece of him each time. He's far more unstable each time he comes out. And his daughter is the world's greatest assassin. She's kind of she becomes the head of the League of Assassins, and she's more of a ninja, which I think was really missing from this movie. If you think about Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul is absolutely a warrior. There's that whole kind of misdirect where he goes by the name Henry Ducard and things like that. But he trains Batman. In this film, I get no idea that Talia was taught by her father. She just seems like a businesswoman. Not a complaint. That oh my goodness, I've forgotten her name. Who plays Talia again? My brains.
Oh,
I know.
She's French.
Yeah,
Can I help you?
It's on the tip of my tongue. There's an M in there somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you.
I've got my Blu-ray here. I should just look it up. What great listening for the audience. Let me just figure out what her name is. I can't think. Marion Cotillard.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, great actress. Really wonderful performance. Just to me, again, just kind of like Catwoman wasn't really Talia. It was more just look, let's give him a name. Let's give them a name that the fans know and stuff. Yeah, she's a bit of a strategist. Obviously she figured out how to trick Bruce Wayne and stuff. So I do like that, but I want to see the warrior. I want to see the woman who's leading an army of ninjas with swords, taking the city, that kind of thing. Very much like Elektra and the Hand in Daredevil. That's kind of a bit of a parallel. I'm sure everyone listening is no, it's not. I'm just trying to compare.
Yeah. I think sounds like I've had a few negative things to say on this movie, but there are Christian Bale, which I'm sure we'll talk more about Christian Bale, so I don't want to touch on him too much, but he's fantastic, and I think we get some absolute primo. What's his name? Jeff.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes. Sorry.
As John Blake.
Yeah, but also is he kind of Robin? I don't know. That was another thing at the end I would have loved some clarity on.
I hated that. I yeah. Look, I always talk on this show about it. There's no bad movies. I don't hate anything. But for me, that just kind of felt like a bit of a cop out. Like, if he's Robin, just call him Dick Grayson. Like, why couldn't he be Dick Grayson? Like, it just felt like they wanted to give you a twist ending.
Yeah.
But there was no payoff because, like, the whole idea was like, oh, and now he's going to become Batman. But they didn't make any more Batman movies, so he could have, he could have easily been like, because Dick Grayson, is a police officer in some storylines, so he could have done that. But it's because, like, I think for the most part of making this film, Chris Nolan was like, "Oh, we'll never do Robin," so it was kind of like, and then they did do it. So, well, I do like the film quite a bit. I've obviously criticized a little bit as well. I do have a lot of problems with it. Not seeing Batman for the first 45 minutes is a big problem. Like, this is another film that fetishizes the villain. We spent a lot of time with Bane. That being said, that scene where, like, Batman fights Bane for the first time, maybe one of my favorite Batman fights.
Yeah, it is just so brutal, and it's really and we're so used to Christian Bale's Batman just being the top dog in any of those fist fights. Like, he can generally win most fist fights fairly easy, and he is dismantled in front of our very eyes.
And the sound design in that scene, where you just hear the water and, like, fists pummeling flesh, like, that is all you hear. And even, Selena Kyle at a certain point realizes she's stuffed up. She's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have brought him down here." And then the rematch, seeing Batman in broad daylight fighting in the snow, and you see, like, Bane go kind of berserk, where he just, like, tears like a chunk out of a pylon. Like, there's some really good fight stuff in there. I liked Scarecrow's appearance in this. I know some people think it's a bit hokey when he becomes, like, the judge and, like, he's sending everyone out to exile. Like, what a great idea. Like, that was a really good use of a kind of, like, character who didn't need a big role. We just want to throw him in there. Like, that was a great use of it. And the biggest criticism a lot of Batman films have is A, the third act is often a mess, and we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. And B is that it's generally overcrowded with villains. And whilst this film does have a lot of villains in it, for the most part, I think their payoffs are pretty good. Like, Bane is done well. Scarecrow is used well. I would have liked more from Selena Kyle and Talia, but they don't feel like they overstayed their welcome. They will serve a purpose.
Yep. And last little thing I'll touch on is this is one of the all-time great Gary Oldman performances as well. I really believe that he is on fire.
We've had a lot of good Gordons. He's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I really like Jeffrey Wright as well. And I love that relationship that he has with Batman. But Gary Oldman, even I would have loved more J.K. Simmons, which I think we are going to get now. I think he's going to be showing up in that Batgirl movie as well. But the one thing they really nailed with casting, maybe out of everyone in that trilogy of the Nolan films, is Gary Oldman's Gordon. It's just pitch perfect. It's exactly what you want from Gordon. Yeah. It's a good flick. It's not on my list.
Yeah. On to you, my friend.
Have I mentioned I like animated films? Number 6 might come as a bit of a surprise. And the first time I watched it, I wasn't sold on it. But having rewatched it many times since, it's absolutely a top 10 film for me. And it's the Lego Batman movie. With Will Arnett voicing Batman. And then you've got Zach Galifianakis as the Joker. Ralph Fiennes, if I remember correctly, is Alfred. Michael Cera is Robin. It's really fun. It does something with Batman that is very, very hard to do, and that's have a good time. Like, Batman is a very stoic, dark, grounded, serious character, and jokes often don't work in the Batman universe. But this Lego Batman movie is really, really fun. The jokes are great. Michael Cera, like, chews the scenery as Robin. Like, it's just this bright-eyed, like, little boy. Just wants to, he's, like, always ripping off his pants so he can wear tights. What else can I say about it? It's heartfelt. Like, it is beautiful. Some of the emotional core of that film, like, they really get into the psyche of Bruce Wayne, of why is he isolated? Why does he continue to be alone? Like, obviously he's very cocky in this movie, and you see Batman just going around like he's the best. He's no one's as good as Batman, and then you find out like the Justice League always hangs out without him because he's so arrogant, and like Gotham doesn't really like him because of his arrogance. But they really dive into what it means to be isolated and what's the toll there, which is really advanced and really kind of some deep thinking for a cartoon movie for children. Like, the voice performance is excellent. Like the cast is huge. There's so many people. I can't even like name everyone who plays a character, but they've got just about every villain in there. It's all comedians. I feel like from Comedy Bang Bang and how did this get made? Like all those guests seem to show up, which is great. I love that it explores the relationship between Batman and Joker, where Joker's like we talked about before, in Killing Joke, how Batman's like, can we just talk before we kill each other? And in this movie, Joker's like, we complete each other. Like we are yin and yang. Like I need you and you need me. Without each other, like Gotham doesn't work. So it's really fun. It's really underrated. I know it's a lot of people rank it highly, but I feel like it doesn't get talked. I think I talked about it a lot when it came out, and no one's talked about it since then. So I just want to keep that alive because it is a really good film. One of my favorite jokes in the entire movie is in the opening scene. There's two pilots flying a plane, and they don't realize the Joker's on board yet, and they're talking about something, and one of the pilots just goes, "Oh, I'm a failure at my job and a failure in my life." And it's just so real. And like, I've never related more to someone's just like apathy. It's genius. I got nothing but praise for this film. It's really, really great.
I alas have not seen it.
It's definitely worth a spin. And I remember the first time I watched it, like afterwards, because my wife loved it, and she was like, "What do you think?" I was like, "Ah." Oh, it's a bit jokey. And she goes, "Yeah, James, was a Lego film." I was like, "Yeah, but like Batman shouldn't be jokey." Like that was my original take on the Lego Batman film.
Yeah.
And then on rewatching, I was like, I was an idiot. This is great. So it's definitely an all-time top 10 film for me.
Yeah. It's good to fit in some levity and brevity into our Batman watching as well.
One of my favorite scenes in it actually is they talk about his history and they recreate all the movie posters with Lego minifigs. So you'll see like the 89 Batman, like the Chris Nolan Batman. There's Batman fighting Superman. He's talking about all his villains, and one was like Superman for some reason. He's like, and then at one point, I had a really weird face, and they just cuts like a clip of Adam West dancing. It's genius. Yeah, that's my number 6. I don't have much more to say about it, especially if you haven't seen it. Like, But it's a fun one. I would absolutely recommend it. Like, and again, I talked about before. Like, one day I'll show my daughter these films. That one's definitely gonna be an easy watch.
That feels like the entry point to me.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm like, why did I say Batman Forever? I should have said Lego Batman.
Yeah. It's like, I think I'll start her off on the Batman. So you're going to enjoy this.
Yeah, you will enjoy it, or else. What is number 5 for you, my friend?
Well, I've got back-to-back Nolan. So my 5th favorite Batman film is Batman Begins. So obviously the beginning point for Christian Bale's Batman and / Christopher Nolan as well. One of my absolute favorite depictions of the origins of Batman. Obviously we get the oft depicted death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. But I love what happens to the character there. I love the bitterness that you can see growing in Bruce Wayne. And I just love that scene where he actually turns up to just kill, is it Joe Chill?
Yeah.
And someone does the job for him. And then he at that point, Katie Holmes is in the film. So I always forget that she's not consistently in them. And then he actually has the gun there, and she gives him a big old slap for doing that.
What a great moment!
It is fantastic. And then this I can't remember if we're given a total of the amount of years he's gone, but he goes on this sojourn of just punishing himself and just trying to destroy crime anywhere he can, which leads him to this Chinese mountain and his encounter with Ra's al Ghul, and it is I think Christian Bale is what a perfect choice for Bruce Wayne / Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you stand on your list of Batman, But I think he's definitely right up there for me, and I think he's one of the few who's absolutely nailed the Bruce Wayne part as well
I would
as
agree.
the Batman. I think that what a lot of people who are depicting Bruce Wayne, they can be a bit self-serious, but I think one thing that Christian Bale does so well is there's a layer of like, you can tell he's putting on the persona
Yes,
of the
absolutely.
billionaire playboy, and you can see through that into like the sort of misery that underlies him. So again, not sure if this is on your list and you want to go over any points now.
I'm gonna put a pin on Batman Begins because that's going to come back. That is going to come back later.
Yeah, okay.
I've got a lot to say about Batman Begins, but I'll save it for a little bit later. Yeah.
I'm also I won't go into too much more detail on this one, but I'm also I'm a sucker for any Wayne Manor scenes in Wayne Manor. So the fact that we get a whole finale,
Yes,
one of the party at the end, and one of my all-time favorite Bruce Wayne moments, which is just goes to the heart of who he is, which is sacrificing his personality.
Sycophant's leave.
Yes, exactly.
It is my favorite Bruce Wayne moment in that trilogy. What a great moment. Please leave. It's not a joke. Get out. Like, your father would be ashamed of you, Bruce. Oh, such a great scene.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I'd be remiss as well if I didn't give a shout out to Michael Caine, who is, I'd say he's probably my number one Alfred. If we were doing a podcast on ranking out Alfreds, he would probably come in at number one for me. So yeah, look, again, I don't want to go over too much of this movie if we'll talk about it in greater depth shortly. So I'll leave it there.
I will just add, because you mentioned Alfred, and we talked about Sycophant's leave, just to make sure that, Michael Caine isn't leaving anything on the table either. His line was like, "What's the point of all them bloody push-ups if you can't lift a log?" Like, just exactly the right amount of sass you want from Alfred.
But yeah, fantastic film. Like a film that if, I'm never watching TV, but theoretically, if that came on, I'm watching. Yeah, I know I'm watching from anywhere in that film. So
nice one. I'll definitely be back to talk about Begins shortly. My number 5 is the last animated film on my list. So I think it was half and half. I think I had 5 live action, 5 animated. I've cheated a little bit because this is a 2-parter, but I'm putting them both on because it's one longer story. And that's The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 and Part 2. Animated adaptation of the Frank Miller graphic novel, which I mentioned before. It was the first time we really saw what Bruce Wayne looks like, or Batman looks like, as an older man. It's what inspired Dark Knight Rises, and more importantly, or not importantly, but more obviously inspired Ben Affleck's Batman as well in BVS. Basically, there's been a law has been placed where superheroes are now banned, and if anyone puts on a cape and cowl and starts fighting crime, the government's going to come after you. And the only exception is Superman, who works for Ronald Reagan. So it's set in the 80s. And then Bruce is, he's an older gentleman. He's in his mid to late 50s. He catches up with Jim Gordon, who's now retired, once a week, whatever, and they just talk about the old days. And then Bruce starts to realize that Gotham has gotten worse. Like, it was better, and now it's going the other way again, and no one's doing anything about it. So he then pulls on the tights again and starts fighting crime. It's very 80s. It was written in the 80s. So the villains in the first book and the first movie are a gang called the Mutants, where they all shave their heads and have mohawks and piercings, and they use weird futuristic language like slice and dice and and stuff like that. And their leader is the mutant leader, who is very much like Bane, a very large figure who can physically outmatch Bruce, especially in his older age. And then the film and the book, basically you see Batman fighting 4 villains. So the first one is the mutant leader, then you have Two-Face, then you have the Joker, and then you have Superman. And the whole idea is what happens to a man who just wants to be good again and it goes from him just trying to save a city to basically total apocalypse. Because like the end of it is him fighting Superman in the snow and the ash, and he's wearing armor, and he's got like kryptonite powers, and the government's after me. It's epic, like it really is. It's Batman's voiced by Peter Weller, more commonly known to most people as RoboCop, which is great casting. You've got Ariel Winter from Modern Family playing Carrie Kelly, the first female Robin. You've got Michael Emerson from Lost, and he was also in the very first Saw film playing the Joker. It's great. It's very violent. It's very dark. There's probably the most famous scene from the movie and from the books as well is the Joker story, because Joker's been gone as well. Like after Batman went away, Joker had nothing to do, so he kind of went to like this retirement home. It's kind of like Arkham Asylum, but more like a old age asylum where he's getting medicated and like he's got people who like him, trying to just help him get back on track. And then when Batman comes back, when he returns after his 20-year absence, the Joker comes alive again. And like, we'll get Joker onto a talk show and he can talk about how he was brutalized by the Batman. And the first thing he does is poison the entire audience. Like he like kills the audience. He kills like a David Letterman type host and the therapist who was so invested in him. And then he kind of rains war on this amusement park, and like he's hurting children, and like he's killing people like left and right. And Batman chases him down in this very famous sequence in a Tunnel of Love ride. And like Joker's shooting people wildly, and Batman, like, he's sick of it. He's like, no more, that's it. And whips a batarang into the Joker's eye and then like shivs him a bunch and breaks his neck. No, sorry, I tell a lie. Joker shivs Batman and then Batman headbutts him and then Joker breaks his own neck because he pushes him too far. I remember the first time I'm like, this is dark. It's not. It's like this wild opera of like, starting with a very small story that becomes this crazy ride. It's definitely worth a watch. The book is worth it. I read the book once every other year easily, so it's very rereadable, even though it was set in the 80s and very 80s influenced. It's just a great Batman story. And again, RoboCop playing Batman, it's pretty great.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that this when you were doing your first talking about this film, what did you say this had influenced directly? I think you did name a couple of.
So The Dark Knight Rises, it influenced. So the mutant leader. I mean, look, Nolan hasn't come out.
I can see it.
But the mutant leader.
I can see that because he's obviously a broken human at the start of Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, he's been in hiding, that kind of thing, because the end of Dark Knight, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, he's on the run, so he's been in hiding, and then he's broken. Like we even see in Dark Knight Rises, he has to get like a magic strap to fix his broken leg and stuff like that. And then the first time he fights this new physical opponent, he just can't handle it. He's older, he's broken, but then he overcomes. But more so, and even like there's that scene in Dark Knight Rises when Batman first comes out and like the cop's like, you're in for a show, kid. Like that's straight from the comic book. But more directly, Batman versus Superman, which I'm sure I imagine we'll probably talk about at some point. But
can neither confirm nor deny that.
That book is directly in direct influence of that movie. There's so many like panels recreated, because that's what Zack Snyder does. He takes panels and then recreates them. So anyone who hasn't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. You can watch them, it's in two parts. So you can watch them, separately, or do what I do and just knock them out back to back. And then you are getting a 2.5 hour Batman movie, which is very enjoyable. It's good stuff.
Shall I?
Go for it. Number 4.
What are we up to? 4. Well, the second animated entry on my list, Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Absolutely.
Now, this is, again, just a bit of personal history with this film. But again, this is something that I had on VHS as a child growing up. So this was my two avenues to Batman were Val Kilmer in Batman Forever and Mask of the Phantasm. And this is, just as a starting point, I'd have to say this is probably my favorite depiction of Gotham. I think they absolutely nail the criminal underbelly and just how corrupt Gotham is. I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first Kevin Conroy outing as? versus
No, so
Batman?
the animated series came first, and then Mask of the Phantasm was
Okay.
written because the show was so successful. They were doing it was actually going to be a direct-to-video release, and they're like, "Look, this show's huge. Why don't we release it theatrically?" And it came out on Christmas Day in 1993, I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. So probably like also hot on the heels of the two Tim Burton films as well. So it was really Batman fever. But yeah, I think again, one of my all-time favorite Joker sequences as well. At the end, it's campy Joker. I will just forever. I'll never forget it. This is really specific, so I don't know if you know the film this well, but there's a bit when he's just like he's like he's in a haunted house thing, and like there's a robot that just chops, and it like he has it preparing his dinner, which really makes me laugh. Honestly, I probably can't wax lyrical too much on this film because I haven't rewatched it in quite a while. So some of the specifics of the storyline, but again, we get that absolute heartbreak for Bruce Wayne of giving his heart to someone, and then it turns out that they're I guess equally as twisted and out for revenge as he is. But yeah, I couldn't speak highly enough of this film. I think for anyone who, I almost think this is like the perfect little like 90-minute snapshot of like, tell me about Batman. This is almost what I'd present to them.
Yeah, definitely. I actually rewatched this the other night because I hadn't seen it in quite a while. And you actually introduced me to this film. I'd known about it, but when we first started hanging out, Batman animated stuff was pretty hard to come by here in Australia. America, I think, was a bit easier, but you couldn't get the animated series on DVD. You could get like episodes, but even that was going back a few years. And the movies were hard to come by as well. And then a couple of years ago, they did a big old Blu-ray box set of everything. So you got all the animated stuff, Mask of the Phantasm and Sub-Zero as well, which is a Mr. Freeze movie. So I snapped that up, obviously, as soon as I could. I do like Mask of the Phantasm quite a bit. It's not on my list, which I know is controversial. I know people listening are going to be outraged. I just saw it too late. Like I like it quite a bit. But by the time I saw it, I'd seen other films that had kind of filled those nostalgia gaps for me. It's not a bad movie. Like, as I said before, I love every Batman movie. It's just not in my top 10. But, the Andrea Beaumont story, which is his lost love, is really wonderful. It's a love story. Like, it's a romantic film. That's what it is at heart. But, you've got Abe Vigoda playing like a criminal and stuff like that. And, obviously Mark Hamill's Joker is always a win. So, and Kevin Conroy, I don't want to take away from him. He's, he has the heavy lifting of being Batman, who I remember listening to an interview a long time ago, and Kevin Conroy, when he was offered the role, I was like, oh, that's a bit boring. I'd rather be a villain. But he brings such emotional weight and gravitas to that role. And he was the first one to change the voice as well.
Is that right? Oh, that's cool. Cool tidbit. And again, do you know, was this Mark Hamill's first time playing the Joker, or had he played him in the animated series beforehand?
He'd done a couple of episodes as well, so they both played the role previously. They had a bit of practice, and I think it was good timing because people were such fans of them. I'm trying to think whether Harley Quinn had been created at this point or not, because Harley was created on the show, not in the comics. It's very rare that the character doesn't appear in the comics first, but she was created first as just kind of like a henchman, and then became, Harley Quinn later on. Because you mentioned that robot, and like that is very, it's really funny. But part of me is like, I wonder why they didn't use Harley. Like that seems like a good opportunity to kind of bring her in as well. But maybe they're like, look, we're trying to, let's crank it down. Like adding Harley as well is going to make it too crazy. Like let's so maybe that's why. But it did seem like a missed opportunity. But look, I love Mask of the Phantasm. I think it's a great film.
Yeah. As I said, I probably don't have too much more to add because I don't have a recent experience of watching it. So I'll hand over to you, my good man.
Alrighty. Number 4, I think this is where the list is going to get particularly controversial for people. My number 4 Batman film is The Dark Knight.
It's 10 o'clock.
I just had a computer freak out.
Yeah.
You've broken technology. Okay, go.
The Dark Knight. I love The Dark Knight. I want to make no bones about it. It is a masterpiece. It is a wonderful, wonderful film. One of the best movies made of all time. Not the best Batman story, though. And that's where this is. And like, I'm getting down to the nitty gritty. It had to be up there with me for me. Like, absolutely, it's so rewatchable. That opening sequence we've talked about so many times in many conversations. To start a Batman film in broad daylight, and then you just have that low whining in the background, and shot in IMAX, and then you just see the explosion of the window breaking, and then that amazing sequence of different Joker henchmen killing each other as they prepare for the robbery until we get to the reveal of Joker. Amazing, wonderful. There's some really great lines in there. The performances are great. The story is great. Like all Batman films, it does fall apart in the third act. I think once the Joker leaves, the film feels like it's going on a bit long, like that whole Two-Face resolution. But this is kind of where I lose a bit of interest.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to the theory that it wouldn't be a good film without Heath Ledger. I think if you had a different actor in the role, it still would be a great movie. But when I've said it a number of times, like these Batman films fetishize the villain so much. I don't care about Batman in this movie at all. Like he's good in it. Look, I don't want to get you wrong. He's got some good moments and stuff, but like he's always playing catch up. I don't really get to see, the world's greatest detective. I don't get to see this hero he became at the end of Begins. As far as movies go, I can't fault it. Like it's pretty flawless. Like the car chase sequence, they after Dark Knight, I was like, they never need to do another Batmobile chase sequence again. They've done them. None of them as good as the one in Dark Knight. Between laughter is the best medicine, but he changes it to slaughter, and he has a rocket launcher, and then like the Batmobile breaks down, and then the Batpod comes out, and like he's chasing down the truck, and they flip the truck, and they bring the helicopter down with the wires. Like it is a great movie, but it is absolutely Heath Ledger's movie, and that's the only reason why it ranks a little bit lower. It's, as I said, it's very hard to fault. We get the bait and switch of Jim Gordon, like is he dead? And then no, he's not, and he's promoted to Commissioner Gordon. There's a lot of wonderful stuff in this movie. It's brilliant, and it's so rewatchable. But not much. But Batman's not much of a player, and that's the only reason why it sinks as low as it does. It's a great movie.
Yeah, you make a pretty compelling few points there, and I think you actually struck on a really good point, which I guess I'd never really thought about, but I don't get the sense that Christopher Nolan was particularly interested in portraying the aspect or the world's greatest detective aspect, because I don't think that's really present in any of the films of his trilogy. Would you think?
Yeah, I agree.
It's like a lot of the other elements are there, and I'm not saying they're poorer for it, but yeah, I think that like you're right. Like you don't get like him investigating, and I mean, I guess he builds that wonder machine that Lucius Fox uses to like track like GPS signals or whatever it is. I don't want to pretend I remember it.
Yeah, no, and then Lucius it doesn't like every great scene in that movie. I think all of my favorite scenes are Joker scenes, with the exception maybe of Batman in China when he breaks into the skyscraper and then uses the skyhook to get away. That's a great scene. All of the best Christian Bale scenes are Bruce Wayne scenes. When he joins the tables with Harvey and Rachel. I don't think let's put the tables together. It's okay. I own the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like whenever he's Bruce, like again, the party scene when Joker shows up, and then they're like, "Is that Bruce Wayne?" And then he just leaves. Like, "Oh my god, are you kidding?" Like he's hiding. He's going to get dressed up. But again, like the thing that makes that movie work is the Joker. Like that's and look, it's not a bad thing. Like I'm glad. Like I'm thrilled we have that version of the Joker. It's arguably the best Joker we've ever had, maybe with the exception of Mark Hamill, but live action, absolutely. But I agree with you. I don't think Chris Nolan was that interested in Batman in these movies, which is fine. But, if I'm going to rank Batman movies, that's why it goes a bit lower. I get the feeling you'll probably want to talk about Dark Knight a bit more at some point. Yeah,
I'm just trying to hold off on any actual opinions because it might appear in my list. I'm not too sure if it will or not.
So that's my controversial one. I think. I mean, everything moving forward now is going to be controversial because, like, what? It's not number one. What beat it? Like, and
that's right.
We're only going to be moving forward.
When I get to the real pointy end of my list, people are going to be ripping their headphones out. So, all right. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add about your most hated film of all time, The Dark Knight?
No, I feel like I'm pretty good there. I will say I mentioned this with Dark Knight Rises, which isn't on my list, by the way. I'll put that out right now. Dark Knight Rises isn't on my list. But what they did with Scarecrow, I liked what they did with him in this movie as well, bringing him back, having played a bit of a bit role to bring that connective tissue, so we know it's an ongoing story. There's a lot of great things about that movie. It's a very, very strong film, and I do love it. So don't hate it too much, internet.
My third favorite Batman film, and I'll openly admit I suffer a great deal from recency bias, is The Batman. No, I notice you haven't said anything yet, so what can I say about this film? It was really refreshing. It was the Batman film I didn't know I needed. It was really refreshing to have something much more grounded, something based on, I mean, I've heard a lot of people using these comparisons, so I certainly won't claim them, but I've heard a lot of people comparing it to Seven, things like that. And it is definitely, I can see why, and also Zodiac.
Yeah, definitely. Those two films in particular.
Yeah, and I think just the way that the plot unfolds, we get a lot of detective Batman, which I love. A little bit of creepy Batman while he's just like looking in chicks' windows. And one of the all-time great villain performances, in my opinion, in Paul Dano. They couldn't have picked a creepier bloke to play a grounded version of the Riddler, far cry from the great Jim Carrey's Riddler. I think Zoe is fantastic as Selena Kyle as well. I think they actually, kind of like circling back to what we were talking about, maybe didn't work so well for Anne Hathaway. I think they actually, wrote in something substantial for her to play with in this film. She's got a really good backstory, and you sort of, I'd almost say that they share equal, like herself and Robert Pattinson share equal billing in terms of the sort of dramatic weight of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you touched on him before, Jeffrey Wright. I think you go straight into the pantheon of Gordons. Myself,
Definitely,
what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think after we saw the movie together, I said they could have called that movie Batman and Jim, because it's really those two on a journey together. It's fantastic.
And I love the journey we see. Now, again, I might defer to you very briefly here in terms of where this is most likely set in the canon. I've heard a lot of, is it Batman Year 2? Is that the kind of rough?
It is, and it actually there's a very brief shot in the movie very early on, in the opening, and spoilers. Like, I'm going to talk about the Batman a bit more later as well. We are going to spoil it, so if you haven't seen it, stop, go see it, come back. During his voiceover at the beginning, there's a shot of him writing in a diary. When he closes the cover, it says Year 2 on it. So, it is Year 2.
Which brings me to my next great point. Good to see Batman keep up with his journaling.
That's a big part of the comics that they've never really addressed in the movies before. He does keep nightly journals and stuff, and kind of tracks it. There's a great comic book run. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Cacophony, maybe, or maybe Widening Gyre, where he brings a girl back to the Batcave and she knows he's Batman, and she just opens up a passage in the Batcave, and there's just bookcases full of journals, and it's kind of played for last. But then she's just reading his notes and stuff.
Yeah, but I just absolutely love the journey that this version of Batman goes on, because I mean, the movie opens with this montage of criminals out at night in Gotham, and we hear this voiceover of Batman saying, "I am vengeance," and that you can see the impact he's had on Gotham in the previous year. All of these criminals are looking into the shadows, thinking Batman might be there. And then for one criminal group, he is, and he beats the shit out of this guy. It is brutal. And then again, don't want to spoil it, but then towards the end of the film, we see him, have this revelation that he's seen the Riddler sort of claim the same thing, like claiming that he's just justice on a corrupt society, and all those shooters that are sort of all the active shooters at the end, he's seeing pretty much himself in that, and then we see him basically start to save people and go on that journey of being hope for Gotham, because that's what they need. And I thought that was an absolutely ripping way to end the film. It was really, really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a lot to say about the Batman, but I'm going to wait a little bit.
I'm trying to leave something left on the
No, don't worry about stepping on my toes. As people know from listening to the show, but I have a lot to say. So
okay. And I really thought some really great cameos here that just added a bit of weight to the film in parts that they can probably get wrong, and I think it sort of loosens the dramatic grip the film has on you. But I think John Turturro as Falcone, I don't know, they seem to change it. It's very interchangeable, his name. And Peter Skarsgård as the district attorney as well. Just having those really accomplished actors in those parts just kept the film really, really tight, in my opinion. Just absolutely, kept you in the whole time.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I think that's probably all I've got. I'm sure if we talk about it in a few minutes' time, I'll probably think of a few extra things to say. But no, really, the Batman film I needed right now. I think that we'd almost hit this crescendo of what does a film mean when you have these CGI battles in the third act. They can get a bit monotonous, I think, and this was the complete opposite of that.
I agree, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like the Avengers effect. Like after Endgame, it's like, well, where do you go? I was like, well, we do WandaVision. We do the small town story. Like we do strip back. That kind of thing. And I agree, and I'll definitely have more to say on that in a moment.
Yeah, I would say. Sorry, just maybe. Obviously, given it a lot of praise, it's up really high on my list for a reason. I'd say the only criticism I do have of it, maybe unfairly, because I'm sure this is like, if you're going to make a Batman film, the Joker has to be in it somewhere. But I just felt that the final little addendum at the end of this film of seeing the Riddler locked up in Arkham, and we obviously his neighbor in the cell next to him is obviously the Joker, and I just thought, did that need to be there? I don't know. So
I agree.
That's where I'd leave that one.
Yeah. The Joker addendum, like even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, like I like that nightmare scene, but that if I was cutting anything out of that 4-hour movie, it's that scene. And same with the Batman. Like that felt more of a post-credit sequence, I think. My number 3 is Batman Begins. I love Batman Begins. To me, it's the strongest of the trilogy as far as Batman films go. I feel like as those movies go, Batman becomes less of, the vigilante, more of like, all right, here's a citywide problem that I'm going to have to try and figure out how to handle without powers. Like it just kind of gets more and more hectic. But Begins is very stripped back. We talk about Joe Chill, and that scene where Bruce comes after him. It's fantastic. We see the training, all the training he goes through, from him being in like a prison fighting in the mud to, climbing the mountain, getting the flower, and then training with the League of Assassins, tricking Ra's al Ghul by cutting all the sleeves on everyone's uniforms.
Yes. What a great scene.
Seeing that thinking, and that's what I missed from the sequels, like that kind of him being creative, being clever. You get that great scene in one of his first nights as Batman, where he's out at the warehouse district. He's throwing batarangs to knock out the lights, and people are getting taken up. Like that to me is Batman. Him tying a criminal to a floodlight and it inadvertently creates the bat signal. That to me is Batman. I prefer Katie Holmes to Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think she's a better Rachel, and that's not a criticism of Maggie Gyllenhaal. She's wonderful, but I don't know. I buy their existing friendship more. I feel like they would, their relation. I think their chemistry was better. So I like that. I like Scarecrow being the villain. I like that we do get some of that CGI madness. Just that's how we get into the fantasy elements of Batman, because it's very serious. But by using those toxins and those chemicals, we can warp reality to play with a headless horseman and things like that. Having little references to villains like Victor Zsasz. Falcone's in this one as well, obviously. Him threatening Bruce Wayne in a restaurant, I really liked. And Wayne Manor, like Wayne Manor is a character in this film. Like there's so much time in it. My joke to my wife is always like, I just want to live in Wayne Manor. I don't want to be rich. And I understand have Wayne Manor, you need to be rich, but look, I don't go anywhere. I just want a house with a great front gate. Like, give me that. The creation of the bat suit, the creation of the bat persona, the creation of the bat cave, and Alfred just sassing him the entire time, because they really built that relationship really well. I think it's the best version of the murder of the Waynes. Like, Zack Snyder painted it beautifully in Batman vs Superman, but that whole conversation, like seeing Thomas Wayne as like the calm, rational, it's fine, it's okay, like trying to de-escalate. And then, Joe Chill getting spooked and then shooting them. So well executed. Like, my only criticism of the film, I've said it a couple of times, is the biggest problem with Batman movies is the third act. They feel like they have to give us a big spectacle. So, at the end of this movie, he's got a grappling hook on the bottom of a train, and there's, sewers exploding everywhere. Like, that's a bit much. But at the same time, like, I'll take it,
Yeah. And I think underrated Liam Neeson performance as well.
Very controlled, very subdued. Like, it's pre-Taken Liam Neeson. From Taken moving forward, they kind of created this new genre of like action dads. They made Taken, they made The Equalizer, things like that. This is kind of pre that. Even something as simple as like keep your chest warm and your arms will take care of themselves. Like, just great little, like, that's the kind of thinking I like in my Batman. Like, when I read a comic, I like him calculated and preparing for everything. He has a solution. He has the knowledge of how to proceed, which again we don't really get in those sequels. And that's I love those sequels and they're great movies. But this is more, we're getting into the mind of Bruce Wayne and how he's able to be so efficient because he's seen every variable. He's done the study. He's trained. The only problem, like with this film, is maybe like the bat suit. Like, I like it most out of the three Nolan bat suits, because I don't really like the motorcycle helmet he wears in the sequels. But obviously, having that neck piece really limits his movement.
And common in the in the live action movies, that neck piece it's a menace.
Also, my only other problem with Christian Bale's Batman is his fighting is all elbows. Like, he's always doing this kind of thing. Like, he's not actually like punching people, which they do remedy later on. But this is this film is really well balanced. It's got some great Batman moments, but some great Bruce Wayne moments as well. The other one I think of is when he returns and like he's with the girls and they jump in like the water feature at the hotel, like that. There's so many wonderful moments. It's the perfect entry point for anyone who wants to watch Batman. Like, they don't do origins better than this. It's really, really strong. And somehow they pull off making Christian Bale look, 5-10 years younger, just with, a bit of hair and makeup. Like, it's actually pretty effective.
They just give him like a stupid pushed forward haircut.
Yeah, but it really works. I think, I think Christian Bale gets overlooked a lot. Like, you were talking about the subtleties in the performance as well, like how we can see through the mask even though others can't. There's a real, like, his Bruce Wayne is very good. I love it. Perfect.
I'd also I'll quickly, sorry, not to hijack your review there, but I would also say, just circling back to something I mentioned that I didn't love about the Batman, the most recent, the Matt Reeves one, is the ham-fisted crowbarring in of the Joker, but like, this is a master at work here, Christopher Nolan, just like right at the end.
Leaves a calling card.
Yeah, exactly. This guy, he's a real sicko, leaves a calling card and it's
Yeah.
a Joker. I mean, like is that not cinematic perfection right there?
Absolutely. And I touched on this when I was talking about Dark Knight, but I will add Hans Zimmer's score. Particularly, I think in Begins, again, more than the other two films, is so effective. Like, there's that very orchestral, like, dun, 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 and it keeps building and, like, has that real epic sound. You get the horns. I think it's called Molossus. I think that's the name of the track. I've definitely used that track in the gym more than once. It's very different. It's not as kind of orchestral and as atmospheric as, say, Danny Elfman's score, which has a very gothic feel to it. But it's very suited to this version of Batman. I can't say enough good things. I love Batman Begins. It's one of my all-time favorites and definitely my favorite of the trilogy.
Yeah. Great film. Great trilogy.
Sure is. We're down to the pointy end, number 2. What do we got?
Number 2 for me, a film we have discussed before, The Dark Knight.
Nice one.
For me, this is cinematic perfection. I know you touched on it as well, but I'd be remiss if I didn't just mention the absolute thrill I get from turning when you decide to rewatch The Dark Knight and you get that, as you said, that IMAX crisp wide shot of the city, the glass breaks, and it's just the film's away then. It is just a spectacle. Having just spoken about Batman Begins, I really love the way it kind of just like picks up where that took off, or that left off, sorry. I think for me, that was probably one of the first times I'd seen like multiple villains really well done. Like both. I mean, we don't necessarily get a character arc of the Joker, because that's not the point of the character. He's a chaos agent, but just you've got the primary villain being the Joker, and then along at the same time, we've got this arc that Harvey Dent is going on, where he's Gotham's White Knight, and you can see it's such a well-written arc. You can see how he becomes Harvey Two-Face as well. I think all of the sort of like bit part players are firing on all cylinders as well. I think Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine add like a really, I don't know, they lend such credibility whenever I see them on the screen. So even when they are doing just like stupid movie shit, like using a GPS machine to like track all the people in Gotham and stuff like that. You just sort of believe it. But I think that the movie does, really start and end with Heath Ledger's Joker. So it's a valid point you make, where it is, Heath Ledger's movie, and it's not primarily Batman focused, but for me, that their conflict and like the scene when he just interrogates him and just starts by smashing his head into the table, it is just such a great scene. And I don't know. There's not enough good things I can say about The Dark Knight. I mean, I feel almost like at a loss for words. I think in various iterations of our podcast, I'm sure we've probably racked up about 10 hours of recorded material on The Dark Knight.
It's so good. Like, and I didn't talk. I focused on the Batman of it all when I was talking about it before, but like, there's so many, like the Joker moment, and also Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face is fantastic. Like, he's really good in it. He's got some really wonderful moments. You can see, like, he plays downtrodden so well. Like, he's dating Bruce Wayne's ex-girlfriend. Like, and he's trying to, like, he doesn't have the wealth to save the city, but he still wants to. Like, it's a really hard role to play, and he does it very well. But, like, try to pick a favorite Joker moment, like him in the hospital wearing the nurse's outfit. Like, he's kind of awkward about it. Look what I started with, just a bunch of matches and gasoline. He snaps the pool cue. We're going to have tryouts. When he explains his origin, I took a razor to my mouth. Like, even like want to see a pencil disappear. Like, every scene he's in is iconic. It's so good, and that voice is so, like, you wouldn't expect it. or the hostage video, you know, when he's like,
That is so creepy.
then why did he dress like him? Like that really like
Yeah.
and he hangs the mask up like it's like I mean, of all the films we've talked about, that's the one I want to go and rewatch the most. Like because just I want to see Heath Ledger act a fool for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, when you've watched the film a few times, obviously I've seen it like 10 plus times at this point, you sort of get used to you know what's coming when he has to make a real Sophie's choice between Aaron Eckhart and what's the character's name? Dawson?
It's Rachel Dawes.
Rachel Dawson's Creek is what I was going for there.
Well, you know, she was in the first one, so
yeah. Rachel Dawes. So, but like, you can't underestimate how heartbreaking that moment is when he chooses like duty over love there, and he lets her die. You know, that is like heartbreaking when you first experience that.
Well, if you remember, he doesn't. Like, he goes to save her, and the Joker played the old switcheroo, which was such a great twist when I saw it in theaters for the first time.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Because he's like, which one are you after? I'm going for Rachel. And, like, I don't think anyone saw that coming. Like, the love interest never dies in these movies. And to have that twist was just like another, like, even though he's not even the same, what a beautiful Joker moment. Just like...
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the final, that just makes Harvey snap, and then we get our Harvey Two-Face. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have too much more to say about The Dark Knight. It is cinematic perfection in every sense of the word. And I think it'll, you know, it's now been, it's probably about 15 years old, and it's been in my top 10 list of movies for that long, and I think it'll remain there.
Yeah, it's such a strong film. And like that's where we are now with this part of the list, the top 3 or 4. Like, how do you like it? Just like, as I said, I agonized over this list. And I moved things around. I always knew I wanted Begins higher than Dark Knight because that's the way I feel about the movies. But until the very end, I was still like, maybe I need to move this around. Maybe I need to go that. Maybe I got to rewatch Phantasm, make sure that's not in my list. Like, I really want to get the list right. So, cool. My number 2 movie is a little film, a highly divisive film called Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition. I don't like to throw in caveats, but like the Ultimate Edition is the only version to watch. It adds an additional half an hour of footage, and without it, the film suffers. Like, when I saw the film in cinemas, I hated it. Like, I remember I came after work. I asked my wife if she wanted to go see it. She was like, sure. The only session we could get was like an expensive, like, director's suite type session. And at the end of it, like, I could hear her sighing because she wasn't into it. And at the end, she was like, what do you think? And I just gave her the thumbs down. I was not into it at all. I did love Ben Affleck as Batman, and I love Cavill as Superman. I just didn't. It felt like an incomplete movie to me.
Sorry to butt in while you're sort of halfway through yours.
No.
Talk about yours, but has there been a more important 30 minutes ever cut out of a film? Because I think you're so right, and probably without those 30 minutes, this film possibly doesn't make my list.
It's all of the motivation has been cut out. You know, like when we find, like, you don't know until you watch the extended cut. You don't know that Luther bribed the woman from, you know, to go on the stand and testify against Superman. You don't know that the wheelchair was made of lead. You know, like, and you don't see. You don't. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say you don't know that Clark Kent is being fed all this anti-Batman propaganda.
Yeah, you don't see Clark go to Gotham to do some investigating. You don't. There's one beautiful moment in the end of that film, after Doomsday's been created, where Doomsday tries to kill Lex Luthor and Superman saves him. That's not in the theatrical cut. Like, and that's such a Superman moment. I love it. I really do. It's such a strong movie. I love Ben Affleck's characterization of Batman. I like his jaded Bruce Wayne. Kind of teeing off, you know, from where Man of Steel ended, to show the final battle of Man of Steel from his point of view, from the ground level, and to just see like this city collapsing and thousands of people running away from danger and have one man running into it is the perfect definition of who Batman's supposed to be. That scene, where the cops are like, they go to where all the women are captive, and like Batman's like hiding in the rafters and like taking stuff. He's branding people. That's straight out of The Dark Knight Returns. The whole because they kind of like, oh, you're in for a show, kid, like that kind of thing. Where he tries to shoot Batman with a shotgun. What else can I say about it? You get the Bruce Wayne training montage where like he's whacking things with a sledgehammer and lifting like impossible weights.
Even though he's got like more money than God, his weights like these real grimy old weights, like looks like they've been around for 20 or 30 years. Like, love that.
Him at Luther's party, like acting drunk so he can go investigate, is really good. We get the beginning of the relationship with Diana and Bruce in this as well, where he's trying to figure out who she is. The fight, it takes 2 hours to get to. But the fight, and that's the thing, I think a lot of people misunderstood, is they were like, oh, it's Batman versus Superman. It's not. It's Batman v Superman. And I know that sounds like a really weird thing to be picky about. Snyder said it himself. He goes, I wrote it as kind of a battling of ideals. The way you would do a court case, X v X. Like, it's not versus. It's not a fight movie. It's a battle of ideals. If someone has ultimate power, should they be able to use it? And how do the people who don't have that power react to it? And this is a Batman who's jaded, a Batman who hasn't had that support. His Robin was murdered by the Joker. We see, the suit in the Batcave. It's a Batman who, in the comics and most movies, if he does meet the Justice League, normally he's in his mid to late 20s. He's not jaded yet. He's on the path to redemption. This is an old, bitter Bruce Wayne who never had any help, and the only help he enlisted was murdered. And now he's confronted with a being who he cannot stop. Here's an indestructible alien with laser vision who can tear down a city in a matter of minutes. And I've never had help before. Now what do I do? Like, ideals make sense. Of course he's afraid. Of course he's angry. And it's a really wonderful kind of, discussion or look at systematic racism as well. Like, where it's like, I don't understand it, therefore I hate and fear it. It's a really complex film. Now, look, the third act is a mess. Like most Batman films, the Doomsday fight is better in the extended cut, but it doesn't do much for me. Batman's basically useless in that part. What we do get before Doomsday is Batman in the warehouse, which is one of the best fight scenes you'll ever see in any Batman film.
I think there's probably a scene or two from the Matt Reeves Batman that we've just talked about, or I've just talked about, where it's a few great brawling scenes, but that's my number one Batman brawler, as the guy who just absolutely just knocks people for six. Absolutely. There's a bit when he like use his grappling hook to sling a box and just like it is just such a cool move. And you know what, like, I don't know if this is throwing the formatting out, but like this is obviously my number one Batman film, so I'll sort of like jump in, go for it. But like, addressing some of the criticism it is a really divisive film, and I've heard a lot of people sort of belittle that moment at the end when he's fought Superman, he's defeated him, and he's planning to kill him, and Superman says something about Martha, and obviously they've both got the same, their mothers have got the same name, and a lot of people are like, oh, what? So just because they've got the same, their mothers have got the same name, that was enough for them to be allies? And I think, no, you're really missing the point. The point was he saw him as this alien invasion, who can destroy the world. But in that moment, it grounds him. He realizes that he's, they're no different. He's just someone who cares about his own mother. And I thought that was a really nice moment. But, I think that's one of the more divisive parts of the film.
It's so weird that it was a sticking point for people because, because it's, exactly. It's humanizing him. He's only ever seen him as Superman. He doesn't know him as Clark Kent. And the fact that, he's just a guy, he's just a boy. a boy from Kansas. Like the last line in Men of Steel, I'm a guy from Kansas. How more American can I get? Like that's the whole point.
Yeah, and but no, a lot of the praise you've given it is I completely agree with. I think this is probably my most rewatchable film. It's the film I can just put on at any time and I'm just in. I love it from minute one. I think I still ride for the fight at the end. I think you're right. It does become a little bit of a mess, but as far as like big CGI creations go, I think it's like a pretty coherent fight, and I think that's about as much as you can ask for with these.
Look, it does give us the Trinity. It's the first time we see Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman together. We get that awesome Wonder Woman theme. And she's the best part of that fight for me. And that's, I guess, again, why, because it's not so much a mess in as much as, like, I don't know what's going on. It's more just like Doomsday's a little unrefined. Like, of all the things that we see in that film, and there's a lot of CGI in that movie, and a lot of CGI in Zack Snyder's Justice League as well, Doomsday could have been done a little bit better. Like, I think the lightning explosions are a little bit kind of wacky and stuff, and he looks a bit strange. But that being said, like, Wonder Woman working with Superman to fight Doomsday is great. Like, I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say just a few other honorable mention for sick moments is when, like, Batman is chasing down the team of Lex Luthor's team who've got the kryptonite.
Yes.
And he's just the Batmobile just looks like indestructible against these trucks. And then, this is probably a moment more slanted towards Superman, but like when Superman just lands and it just bounces off him.
Yeah.
That is so great.
Absolutely. That also, there's the footage of Batman invading, like going into LexCorp to steal the kryptonite, and you just see him like drop from the roof. Like, It doesn't get much more Batman than that. Speaking of Luthor, I really like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I know he's a sticking point. Like, this is a film that has a lot of interesting and unusual choices, and I think audiences didn't like those. I like his Lex Luthor. I like that he's unsure of himself. I like that he's calculated but socially awkward. Like that speech he gives when he's like trying to explain about power and gods, he just mumbles it. Like, I think that's really human. And, it's kind of like the criticisms the Spider-Man films have got about Flash Thompson. He's not a jock anymore. He's an intellectual kind of bully. Good. I like that. Like, it puts him on the same level. It grounds him a little bit. I really like his Luthor. I think he offers some of the few moments of levity in the film because it is a very serious film. And I think I think Jesse Eisenberg's having a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah.
And he gets to make tyrannical speeches. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and he does it so well. I love it. There's so much I could say about this film. There's so many great moments in it. We didn't talk about the fight. Like, the fight is great. I've talked about how I don't like Batman smiling. I'll give you one exception. When he's in the armor and Superman lands, and he goes, "Well, I'm here." Like, what a great, like, cocky, arrogant delivery. And he's got the machine gun set up and like the sound blasters and everything. It was so good.
Yeah, and you really, I think, like, they really use kryptonite well in this. I know that's like probably the nerdiest sentence I've ever spoken, but I really I like the fact that it just completely can bring Superman to his knees here, and it just levels the fight, and it doesn't just more than level the playing field. He's pretty much a goner as soon as Batman starts using it.
And there's that great moment when the kryptonite starts wearing off because he's like punching him, and then the punching gets more less hollow, it gets more hollow, and then he realizes what's doing. He's just like puts his hands up in defense, and Superman throws him through a wall. It's great. I love it.
Fantastic. I mean, divisive. Probably, be remiss to talk about this film and not talk about how divisive it is. I listened to another podcast recently who was ranking Batman films, and they didn't have this in a top 10 list or whatever their list was. I think people watched the theatrical cut, decided it was a bit of a mess, and never went back. And I really would encourage anyone who's listening to, if they haven't checked out the theatrical cut, to really do so. It changes the face of the film. You get a lot more context, and it just starts to make a lot more sense.
Absolutely. Even my wife, like, she's only seen it the one time. She's seen the theatrical cut in theaters. And there's a channel on YouTube called Cinema Wins, and they do the opposite of Cinema Sins, where they look at all the great things about movies. And he did like a 2-part video on Batman vs Superman, the extended cut. And after watching, I was watching, and she kind of caught me, and she's like, "Oh, she's never thought about it like that. I guess maybe it is worth a rewatch." I was like, "Oh, we can rewatch it." And she's like, "Nah." Like, it's just one of those things, because that film does come with a stigma. But yeah, the extended cut definitely serves it better. But also, some movies don't always work the first watch. Sometimes you need to give it a second spin to take it all in. Even like I talked about the Marvel films before, and again, I'm not putting them down. I love them, but I find more things in each rewatch with all those films. Like Incredible Hulk, I rewatched recently. The last time I watched it, I was like, okay, this isn't because I remembered it. And then this time I loved it again. So it also just depends. Like each viewing is going to give you different things. And Batman v Superman, unfortunately, people kind of didn't get what it was about. Maybe the marketing didn't help to kind of set it up to be. We didn't even talk about the nightmare sequence. Like them fighting in the desert. Like, there's so much, Flash time traveling, traveling back in time to let him know, like, hey, you've got to look, keep an eye on Lois. She's the key to everything. It is solid. I love it.
I don't know if I've really got anything else to add. It's just perfection.
It's a great flick, and sorely underrated. So hopefully they'll give it another chance. I guess that just goes down to my last movie, because CBS was your number one. Process of elimination will probably dictate what my number one is now. I don't think anyone's surprised. Maybe they're surprised it's so high on my list, but not surprised what I'm going to say. It's the Batman. And I was really unsure about this when I was writing my list, because I'm like, I've seen it once. It's really new. Like, maybe it's too soon to put it at the top. But here's the thing. Everything that's missing from the Batman movies I listed previously is addressed in this film. It's Batman as a detective. It's all set at night. He's in the costume constantly. I don't need, like, people have complained there was enough Bruce Wayne. I've got enough Bruce Wayne from the last 30 years. I'm fine. Like, I want to see him as Batman. The fights are excellent. All the relationships are done really well. Him and Jim Gordon, perfect relationship. Him and Selena Kyle, perfect relationship. The only thing that's missing is the Alfred relationship, but I got a lot of Alfred in those, Jeremy Irons we didn't talk about, but his Alfred's great. Every Alfred's been good. I know their next film, we're going to see more Bruce Wayne. We're going to see more Alfred, so I'm cool with that. I want to see something a little bit different. This film is relentless. There are 3 songs in this movie. There's a Nirvana song, Ave Maria, and the score, which is just the same 3 notes, and it works. Grounding Riddler as a Zodiac-type killer is so effective and terrifying. The first time you see him step into the room, I got chills. And I don't get scared in movies very often. I watch a lot of horror movies, but it felt like a horror movie. And just knowing he was just sitting there calculating, waiting to strike. He could go in every one, and he's just putting it off, just savoring the moment. Zoe Kravitz is excellent as Selena Kyle and as Catwoman. Like, she walks that line really well between kind of anti-hero, kind of out for herself, and then also trying to help people less fortunate. The use of gadgets tech is minimal but effective. I love the contact lens cameras. I love his stripped back Dodge Charger Batmobile. I think it really plays to who this Batman is. Like, I know people criticized, the Alfred relationship, and they criticized, how Batman's not perfect in this. He shouldn't be. It's year 2. I want him young and inexperienced. I want him making mistakes, because all the other Batmen we've seen have been active for a while, with the exception of Batman Begins. And those Batmans making mistakes, I can't excuse, because he's meant to be better than it. This one, it's okay with that. I think Colin Farrell as Penguin is excellent. It's my favorite version of the Penguin. I agree with you about John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. Like, what a great performance. This film has 4 villains, and no one oversteps their boundaries. It never feels overcrowded. Now, The film is long; it's 3 hours, and you can definitely cut some stuff out of there. Um, but that being said, I was never bored. I know that,
Yeah,
like,
I don't really think there's a flat spot in the film, really.
no. And when we were talking about the film after we saw it, I think I said to you, look, we could take, maybe one of the victims out. Like, that takes down 20 minutes, but I like having them in there. Like, I like seeing that killing spree. That end interrogation scene where he goes to Arkham and the Riddler's just saying Bruce Wayne, and you think that, like, he's figured out the identity, and then it's like a bait and switch. I was fooled. I really thought they were
Yeah.
going to do it again, where a villain figured out his identity, and then, like, they kind of played us. I like the riddles. I know some people think that the riddles are a bit too easy. Look, it's a movie. It's a Batman movie. Like, if I can solve the riddles, I feel as smart as Batman, so I don't mind that. There's some really great lines. I love when he's in the police precinct and he's surrounded by the cops and he's trying to get out, and the police just like, "I've got you for assaulting an officer," and Batman's like, "I think you'll find I've assaulted 3." Like, great line.
Yeah, yeah.
I love seeing the contrast between the way the cops treat Batman versus the way the cops treat Bruce Wayne, because you see the same cops interact with him in both personas, and, like, there's awe and admiration for Bruce, but absolute disdain for Batman.
Yeah.
That whole funeral scene, I think, is excellent when the car comes through, and then you've got Riddler on the phone asking the riddles. Riddler is portrayed, like, we talk about Zodiac, but I also get the feeling he was inspired by kind of like those incel terrorists. You know how, like, over the last couple of years, there's been some really horrible crimes where it's been teenagers who can't get a girlfriend, so they go and shoot a school. Now, obviously, that is a horrible and real world tragedy. But what an interesting choice for a villain to be like, look, he's a bit of a loser. He's garnering support on social media. Like, he's spreading his word of hate through that, and now everyone wants to be the Riddler. Which felt like a nice callback to Dark Knight, where you have everyone dressed up as the Joker. Or even everyone dressed up as Batman, everyone wearing hockey pads and stuff. Like, that was great. Again, third act is a bit wild, like the flood kind of comes out of nowhere. But
Yeah.
it does give you the opportunity to have Batman wading through the water with a red light, which looks very cool.
That was cool. Yeah, I think obviously wanted to save a little bit of the discussion for when it came up for you, but did want to see how you felt Robert Pattinson did as Batman. Where he ranks for you. You're obviously same with me. Thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, he's great. I never had any concerns. I remember when he was announced, like, whenever anyone gets announced for a role these days, there's backlash. Like, I remember people being outraged by Ben Affleck. I'm like, what? I'm like, have you seen a Ben Affleck movie? Like, it's a perfect choice. Same with Pattinson. Like, everyone always thinks of the sparkly vampire Twilight movie, but watch Good Time. Watch any number of other Robert Pattinson films. The guy can act. He, like, my only concern was, I was like, oh, he's a bit skinny. Like, he might not seem intimidating, but I didn't know how tall he was. I know there's lifts in the boots, or whether he just is that tall, but he towers over everyone. He fills the space well. There's not much of a bat voice there. It's kind of a bit of a gravelly Bruce Wayne, but that's okay. I don't need the Christian Bale voice either. That one was a bit wild. It is kind of surprising to see that people who spend so much time around both Bruce and Batman can't figure out that it's the same person because of the voice. But that's a very small price to pay. I love the suit. I love that the bat symbol comes out and can be used as a tool as well. I really liked him. I think he's great. I don't think there's a weak performance in the entire film. I think everyone is at their best. Like, they're absolutely kind of playing to their strengths.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, and I think that when I was talking about the film, I definitely skipped on talking about Colin Farrell, but he's great, and just a shout out to whoever they got to do the makeup on this film. That is, I think, the best prosthetic makeup I've ever seen. You just couldn't tell it was him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really phenomenal. Okay, well, that's really interesting that's jumped to number 1 for you as well.
I didn't know it was going to be until I wrote my list. And the more I think about it, like, it's the only film I can think of, the only Batman film where Batman is the main character and is the primary focus. Like, even Batman vs Superman, I love, but he has to share the screen with a couple of characters. Like, it's very much a Man of Steel sequel, even though Batman is the main name in the title. But this one is, it gives me everything I've always wanted but never seen in a Batman film. So, look, time will tell. Maybe in 6 months' time, I'll retract this statement and I'll have jumble up my list. But I just don't see it dropping out of the top 5 anytime soon. And I can't wait to see what Matt Reeves does next because I was so impressed with it. So,
yeah, I'd love to. I don't know if you've heard whether there was interest in a sequel. You presume there is. It's rare that these films are a one-off, particularly if it's such a big hit. I'd love to see him expand on this iteration of Batman. They've obviously teased the Joker. I mean, we sort of talked about it a little bit before. So yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see what they do. I'd love to see how they score the next one because, as you say, this was very sparse. It was those 3 piano notes really made up a fair chunk of the whole movie.
But very effective. I really enjoyed the score. I hope whatever they do with the sequel, I hope we get some villains we haven't seen before, or we can improve on. So I'd love to see another take on Mr. Freeze. I'd love to see another take on Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is maybe my favorite villain. So I'd really like to see her done justice. My favorite version right now is the one in the Harley Quinn animated series, but I'd love to see her done as kind of like an eco-terrorist. I think there's a lot you can do with that character. Clayface we've never had before. Killer Croc I wasn't impressed with in Suicide Squad. I think there's a way to do him. There are so many great villains. I think if they're like, hey, we're doing the Joker and Two-Face again, I'll be a little I'm sure it'll be great, but I'm just like, look, we just did Catwoman and Penguin. We've done them a bunch. Let's mix it up. And Riddler, sorry. Let's just move to the side.
Give us what we want. And what we want is a Calendar Man film.
I think that they could do Calendar Man in this universe very easily. I think they could do a cool version. I actually spoke to, I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, David, my brother-in-law David, and he suggested Calendar Man as a legitimate option. So
whenever I think of Calendar Man, I think of, do you know when you see like someone dressed up as like a cartoon mobile phone trying to sell, like the thing Michael like pokes at that convention they go to in the office. That's what I think of Calendar Man, but a calendar.
Nice one. Well, those are our lists. Pretty strong list, I think. Everyone will hate them, I'm sure, but I'm really happy with them. I am very aware that
welcome the feedback.
Yeah. I am very aware that our meeting is about to end. We've got about 8 minutes left, so we'll do a quick wrap up. But did you have any honourable mentions you wanted to list quickly?
I certainly did. I didn't have many. My lack of experience with the animated films means I just didn't have the general number that you were probably working with, but I just had the 2. So I had Batman and Robin, the second of Joel Schumacher's. I think pretty self-explanatory. It's not a good film. George Clooney really wasn't given the best equipment to work with. It's campy beyond belief. Like the cheesy lines, the cheesy villains, Bat credit card. It's maximalist, out of control 90s at its best. And my other one, which I actually shows how well I knew you, I actually thought that Batman from 1989 would have actually made your list and been relatively high on it. I rewatched that for the first time in 10 or 15 years to prepare for this podcast, and I had just forgotten. I think what I've been too wrapped up in serious Batman, which is what we've had for the last 15 years, and I'd forgotten that there's movies where the Joker dances his way into this museum and just starts destroying art to a
I always
song,
think of that. That's what, whenever people ask me about Batman, that's the first thing I think of. It's on my honorable mentions. I do like that film, but it's very campy, very wacky. Also, this is a movie where Batman not only shoots a gun, which he swore he'd never do, but when he does shoot, he misses. So I do like Batman '89. It just certainly has its place. And without that film, we may not be where we are today. So it definitely, is a very important film. But it's on the honorable mentions for me. I would also add Batman and Robin as well. I really like Batman and Robin. it's not a good film, but it is my first Batman movie. Without that movie, I may not ever become interested in the character. So I do have an affection for it, even though it's not very good. I would also add Batman, the 1966 movie with Adam West. That's really fun. Very, very silly, but that show is great and really entertaining. In that movie, there's a lot of fun to be had there as well. And then I threw in a couple of animated films. So there's Batman Assault on Arkham, which is actually more of a Suicide Squad film. It ties into the Arkham games, and basically they have to break into Arkham and stop the Joker, if I remember correctly, and Batman's involved. So not really a Batman movie, which is why it wasn't on the list, but it is a lot of fun. And it is a great introduction to those characters. So it's a good one. And then there's another animated film called Batman Year One, also based on a Frank Miller comic. It's, inspired the Batman with Robert Pattinson. It's about Bruce Wayne's first year becoming Batman. He meets Catwoman, and he's voiced by Ryan from the OC. What's that guy's name again? Ryan from Chino,
Yeah, I know him. What's his name?
Ben.
I think he's just Ryan.
Ben something. I want to say
Ben Mendelsohn is not his name.
Ben Franklin. No, it's why?
I'll look it up now. This is the
Ben
curse
McKenzie.
of podcasting. You can never think of names when you need them.
It's Ben McKenzie, and I can't remember who voices Gordon off the top of my head, but it's great. It's a good adaptation. It's just not as strong as some of the ones, but it's definitely worth watching. Also, there you go. That is our huge, oversized Batman episode. I don't know what time we started recording, but we've gone over 2.5 hours.
Like any good bloated Batman film.
Excellent. That's going to do it for our Batman list this week. Thank you for sticking around and listening to all the Bat chat. We are officially Bat fans forever. How many more puns can I get in?
That's just boys talking bats, man. That's all it is.
Boys talking bats. Thank you for listening. You can obviously follow on Instagram. I Was a Teenage Film Snob. The show is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well as Anchor FM. We want to thank Nick for being a guest. I'm sure he'll be back again soon. I will keep dragging him back in until he's sick of it. I love talking to him about movies. Anything you want to throw out there before we wrap up, Nick?
No, thanks for having me back on. It was a great pleasure. I'm looking forward to our next chat. And if you ever want to rank something, you know where to find me.
He is a grade A ranker. He is, old Nick. Thank you for listening. As we always say, I was a teenage film snob, but I am trying to be better. We'll see you next week.